Nancy sent out, the last one that Nancy sent out. Some pages it's Berlin Elementary, some pages it's Berlin Memorial. Then it was something else even completely different. But they always get Boylston Elementary right. So anyway, there we go. General public comment. Okay. So we'll move on to discuss and vote on the dump run, the car show.
Yes. How are you guys?
Good.
Going forward.
Sure. Yes. Come on.
Got an assist this year.
Yes, this is Joseph Atkinson. My name is Michael Sheehan. He assisted me. We were kind of partners with putting it together in the end, and I was successful because of his help. And together, we're still looking to see this year. I don't want to speak too much.
It's okay.
Just to see if we could have approval again to facilitate the same style of car show. We did learn some lessons, constructive criticism, where you could have had more trash cans available for people because they were sort of hunting for places to put their debris. So different things like that we paid attention to, and we'd like to move forward in the same manner, same fashion. Last year we did have the American Legion come on board after we were permitted to join or have the event hosted here in Berlin. And they were successful in selling their poppies for the Memorial Day weekend, and I believe they were pretty excited about it, and they have made some intention of being a part of it this year also. There may be some other partners if we were to be approved tonight, there may be some other avenues that people may come in front of you to ask for permission to do maybe music or maybe other things that we could kind of collaborate. Once I get the go-ahead, respectfully, if I were to get that, then I can kind of give people the opportunity to invest their time and see what they can do from there. So if there's any concerns or criticism, that you guys would like to share with me that I could change or we could change about the show, we're all ears for that also.
Okay.
And still weather dependent, and there would not be a rain date.
Oh, okay.
Just because it's one of those weekends where if it happens, it happens, and if it doesn't, we'll just try again next year, respectfully, if it's something that can continue.
Okay.
And then you're looking at Saturday, May 25th, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Just for people watching or might hear it, if we say the date a few times, people can start marking it on the calendars.
And I think too, also one of the shortcomings that I had, I'm not a very big social media person, so I think this year, one of the things that I've looked into with Joe, myself, have looked into some sort of residential flyer or mailer, if able to do so, where we would send out a mailer to all the residents in town to give them the option to know about the car show, because I feel like some of the negative criticism was more along the lines of, geez, if we had known, we would have gone, because it turned out to be a really good family event, and people even without cars felt that, geez, we would have brought our kids there had we known. So I think there was a little bit of that, kind of thing. So this year I'm going to try to get ahead of it. His son was very instrumental with Facebook and different things, so we have avenues that we're going to try to connect for this year,
Good.
respectfully, if allowed to host the car show again.
Yeah.
Talk to John Campbell at Berlin Memorial. He's the principal.
Yes.
And then he'll talk to Carol, see if there's any type of flyer that maybe you could give him or that he could put in his newsletter
Sure.
to send home to the kids. If you do print them out, you'll need 230 copies, just saying.
Oh, for the kids, yeah.
Yeah, every kid gets one.
Yes. No, definitely. I think I don't know what the residents were, but it's about $700 for the mailers to go out. And then we would try to recoup that cost through charging admission this year with the cars. So last year it was free. I footed the bill along with Joe. And, we were able to retain, we didn't make our money back. However, it was our contribution to trying to kickstart the event. And then this year we're going to try to recoup our money in the event that we could put it towards the next year if this becomes something that people would like to, further continue in the future.
Did you have a lot of people in Berlin who had old cars that wanted to include them?
We did. We had, I believe, one of the gentlemen, Skip Sawyer. He has a beautiful Jeep that he brought down. We have some of the Rossadinis had Broncos. They were local. Joe
Ray
has...
Donna, you know him, Ray and Pam. He brought down his Pam.
Oh, yeah,
he
yeah.
has a whole bunch of stuff up there hidden.
Yeah.
Joe has several cars.
Yeah, I got a couple
And he's,
cars.
of course, from
Me
Berlin.
and, Jess.
Scott's
Yeah.
got one too, but it's not an antique.
It's a brand new car.
It is beautiful, I saw it. But yeah, so, about 60 cars roughly in and out of the show last year. I think we'll try to consolidate the vehicles to Woodward Ave to begin with, and then if there is any overflow needed. We did mitigate some of the neighbor issues, our issue that we had, and I think that they were pleasantly surprised was the feedback I kind of was getting, that they seemed as if we handled it correctly. So I think the addition of trash barrels and the same mitigation for people stepping on people's lawns and just providing clear definition of where the car show is, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, and then go from there.
Good.
I don't know, because I really enjoyed it last year.
I did see you there, and I thank you for coming very much.
I would make the motion to support the Dump Run Car Show on May 25th.
I'll second it.
All right, got a motion and a second. If anybody has anything else to say, it's now or never. Otherwise, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you all there. Okay, if you can make it, we'll hope for good weather.
Yes.
Yes.
25th, right?
Yes.
Memorial Day
No, I'm
weekend.
sorry, today is the 26th.
Oh, yeah, I thought you were asking me about the car show.
Thank you for your time.
No,
Okay. And we also have 2 general department updates.
Yep,
Victoria, do you want to go first? Is that all right?
take a,
Hey, everybody.
hi.
Long time no see. At least in this manner.
Yep,
All right. So just generally speaking, just for those who may be newer to town or who may have forgotten, I'm Council on Aging and Social Services Director, and then just general outline of what my role has been with the town. So I started with the town in July of 2020. I was part-time at the time. I became full-time in November of 21. In the summer of 22, I became the ADA coordinator for the town, and back in June of last year, I became a registered Shine counselor, and that has been another responsibility taken on. And then the most latest big project has been the digital literacy grant that the town received at the end of last year, and we got the funding in so we can get everything moving with that. So just generally speaking, for COA services, the COA portion of it is meant to cover seniors, which the state identifies as people 60 and older. So do I necessarily think people at 60 or older are all seniors? No, but that's what the state categorizes it at. So this includes the van services, this includes our exercise classes, which are Tai Chi and yoga, it includes Meals on Wheels, it includes our grab and go meals, it includes basically the Powder House News, it includes also any durable medical equipment loans, which we get quite a few of. Again, wintertime tends to be a bit more. And we also fall under the category of Executive Office of Elder Affairs. So annually, I have to submit a report to the state, just letting them know what we've been doing as a town. We also have any kind of vaccine coordination. We do work with the Neshoba Boards of Health for their flu clinic that happens towards mid to late October. This year, we also had a COVID clinic in late October down at Northbrook 2, and it was really successful. And during the summertime, we also get farmers market coupons, which are meant to be geared towards our senior residents. Normally, Berlin has an allotment of 5 coupons for our seniors, but due to the high need, we wound up getting 15 coupons last year that were all distributed out relatively quickly. So because we've had such a high demand in the last year, I'm going to request more come this year. And then, like I said, our newest part of the Council on Aging solely is the digital literacy classes. Mm-hmm. Shine Counseling, for those who may not be aware, it is serving the health insurance needs of everyone. So it usually targets seniors, but it is open to everyone. We focus on any kind of questions regarding Medicare, whether it's original Medicare or Medicare Advantage, any of the additional insurances such as Medigap, or picking out a Part D policy. We also screen too for public benefits, so this includes Mass Health, fuel assistance, if somebody would need WIC, if somebody would qualify for any additional like SSI supplements or things like that as well. So that's it for COA. And then, so social services is everything with COA, plus I do some collaboration with public safety. If there's any particular residents that they think are in need, I will coordinate and do some follow-up with them. The fuel assistance, Mass Health, any kind of food assistance. or any kind of, again, review of any application I would do as well. Shine, again, obviously falls under social services. I am a mandated reporter as being a social worker and with my role. So there are sometimes I have to coordinate with the state agencies, so whether it's DCF, Protective Services, or DDS for anybody who has a developmental or physical disability. I do some caregiver support. We do, for the mental health side of things, I will help with referrals. I will do some check-ins, whether they're phone calls, whether they're emails, or they're in-person visits with some of the residents. Those tend to scatter and they tend to vary depending on the need. And then, just generally speaking, I'm looking to do more in terms of like the regional coalitions that we have. So 2 of which that I've been more actively involved with is the Joint Coalition on Health. They are based in the Leominster-Fitchburg area, but they cover all of Worcester County. And again, they look at healthcare as just as a whole for our county. And then the Central Mass Suicide Prevention Coalition. Suicide is a big issue, obviously, and the coalition itself looks to get resources and get supports out there for our residents as well. And that's, yep. So just general information. So unlike some of the other departments, I kind of ebb and flow. I have some days where I am slammed, and I have other days where I may get a phone call. And it really just depends on season. I've noticed that wintertime especially, we get a lot more calls for durable medical equipment. People tend to get injured and they may be having surgeries. In the springtime, it tends to be more support. We tend to get some supports, especially for sometimes with food assistance. Sometimes it can be even like, again, mental health stuff. If a lot of times we see that people may have felt better like as the new year starts, but then as things continue to go through like a tough winter, we may get more people calling in. The fall time, I usually get slammed, especially now with Shine, between additional like mental health needs and Shine referrals as well. So it, like I said, I ebb and flow in what I really need to do with the residents. I would say the overwhelming majority of my interactions with people are usually phone calls or emails. Phone calls are from the residents. Emails are generally from loved ones who have residents in Berlin still, who have like whether they're parents, grandparents, siblings, whomever, and they're looking for some additional resources or additional support. Sometimes if it's going to be too lengthy, I'll give them a call back and we'll figure out exactly what it is that's needed. Sometimes I'll start out with a phone call from somebody and then I'll send them an email just kind of wrapping up what we discussed and then giving them some additional resources or things to consider. Like I said, the in-person visits that I tend to have usually are the Shine counseling visits. And then I will do home visits for public benefits as well. I've had numerous people where I've done fuel assistance reviews. I've done reviews for veterans benefits. I've done reviews for public housing as well. There's a lot of paperwork that goes into those applications, and I think sometimes people get really overwhelmed because they're not quite sure what's always needed. So sometimes it's just easier for me to go out and then just tell them you need, A, B, C, D, E, and they get it submitted that way. Just in general, I was looking through some of my old records. So since I've been here, at least from what I can see, I've served 109 families in Berlin since I've started, but that does not include back when we had all the COVID clinics and I had to help people get registered. I don't have that data, I didn't save it, but just generally speaking, I have a little bit over 100 families that have been served by Council on Aging and Social Services. Some more frequently than others, but again, it's glad. Like I've definitely noticed that calls have picked up and that we're getting some newer families and reaching out for some help, which is always good news. Looking forward, there are some things that are on my radar that I think we as a town need to kind of look forward to and just start trying to address. The first big one that we all know that's coming is that the senior population in town continues to increase. We're right now hovering between 34 and 35%. We know we're going to hit closer to 40% by the end of the decade. And a lot of what the UMass report was noting was that a lot of the people who are moving into town don't have the informal support, such as family or friends, already in town, which makes me concerned because now we're going to have people moving into town and aging who now don't have that support network in place. A lot of the affordable resources that were covered by the state, such as like elder services or home care services, there's a massive shortage, and there's not going to be enough people there to provide services to residents in general. And Berlin, unfortunately, is no exception to that. A lot of the services that we're seeing more and more information on are just private pay. And it is not always feasible for somebody who's especially on a fixed budget, whether it's Social Security or a pension or something like that, to designate $25 to $30 an hour for private pay services. One of the things I definitely want to do more of a focus on is more of Berlin's younger residents. I feel like at this point, I haven't been able to spend as much time with the youth as I want to, but I definitely think that they're a very important part of the population of Berlin, and I want to make sure that we can do more to get services out for them, resources out for them, whether it's through parents or through the schools directly, or just more programs targeting to them. And then the town has received opiate settlement funds. I am doing some work with Kristen along with Chief Shartner to try to figure out how to best use that money that the state has given us. As of right now, we don't have anything coordinated, but I'm hoping that will change in the not too distant future. Substance abuse continues to be a huge issue. It's a big public safety issue. It's a big public health issue, and it ties right into the work that I'm doing with social services and with Council on Aging. And a lot of what I think the state highlights, and Kristen and I have talked about as well, is trying to use that money a lot for education as well as prevention and resource enhancement. Because like I said, there's just so many resources and too big of an area to cover it. Finally, one of the big things that I really want for Council on Aging and Social Services is right now, everything I'm doing is reactive. I don't have time, I don't have the manpower to be more proactive. And again, as more and more residents become of more of a senior age, they may have more or challenging problems ahead. I want to be able to do more to help out the residents. So ultimately, one of my bigger goals is trying to shift things to do more proactive work as opposed to just being solely reactive. The reaction part of the job is still always going to be there, but even if I can ebb and flow that a little bit, I think that it will make things a bit easier, and hopefully we can get ahead of some of the challenges that may be coming down the road. That's all I had. Then,
Nice.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So what does SHINE stand for again?
So SHINE for Massachusetts stands for Serving the Health Insurance Needs of Everyone. It is a federal program called SHIP. So I don't know why Massachusetts decided to give it a new acronym, but SHINE falls under the SHIP program, which is national. So SHIP counselors or SHINE counselors are some people are volunteers. I'm in one of the paid positions, obviously, because I'm here, but we are informal, unbiased people. And really what we do is if people are looking for insurance information, we show them all of their options, explain to them pros, cons, and then people make the informed decisions that way.
I'm sure you get a lot of calls for that, probably.
It's been picking up. We're actually in Medicare Advantage open enrollment till the end of March, so that's been interesting because it's not open enrollment for everybody because you had to be in a Medicare Advantage plan already when the year started. But one of the things that we've noticed is UMass is not taking a lot of the United plans anymore. You can still see your specialists, but you can't necessarily see your primary care. And they're, like I said, we're having some issues with that. So that's been one of the issues that SHINE's been dealing with over the last couple of years.
Any other questions?
What would be some of the proactive things you'd like to be trying to do if you had resources?
I would love to have office hours between all of the senior housings, do more work with Northbrook. I would love to do some caregiver support groups or have some more groups that are focused towards, specific parts of the population. I'd love to have more activities that could be done as well, but I just don't have the time at this point to do it.
Thanks. I'm
You all
fine.
set?
Yeah.
Okay, Peg?
All right, so we'll go back up to the top, because that's how I go by questions. I go top down. So on slide 2, so you've been here for
Almost 4 years.
Almost 4 years. What other grants have you been successful at getting besides the literacy one?
That was the first big one. I'd applied to a couple others before, but I hadn't been successful until that one. Yep.
So now going down to slide 3, On the digital literacy, I think, and forgive me if my notes are incorrect, but I thought the last time Kristen talked about this, she said that there were 5 people that were signed up for previous classes. What has been your attendance and what is the capacity of these classes?
So we've had 3 rounds of the Introduction to Digital Literacy. We had one class where we had 4 participants, one class of 3 and one class of 5. What we've noticed is that we've had to do a lot of tweaking with this introduction class, and that the residents are needing a lot more one-on-one time than we had originally anticipated. So when we had proposed the grant, we were looking at capping the classes at about 15 people. But right now it is me and the instructor in the classes, and because we've had to do a lot more one-on-one work with residents, I think if we honestly had more than 6 or 8 people, it would just be way too much, to be honest with you.
So on the literacy, is it just that you're teaching them how to use computers? You don't give them anything to take home, correct? I mean, so if you
Yep.
taught me here, I don't walk out with a laptop.
So as of right now, with the introduction classes, people have been bringing in their own technology, and we've been teaching them how to use that. As part of the grant, we did purchase mobile hotspots that people will be able to check out of the library, and we are also purchasing tablets that people will also be able to check out of the library as well. We've gotten 2 refurbished Microsoft Surface tablets. CM Geeks has already done what they needed to do on those, and we are in the process of ordering some more. I'm working with Victoria to finalize a policy and procedures with that, because they will be housed at the library and they'll have the barcode and they'll be checked out just like you would anything else. We're finagling the final checkout length of time, and we are encouraging people that, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, if you accidentally drop it or something like that, don't hide it, tell us so we can get it addressed. Everything that we've been purchasing in terms of the tablets, we've been getting extra protection, hardware protection onto it. So we're just trying to negate any potential issue that could come from that.
Okay. And the next 2 questions, I don't want names, I don't care for names, but on your COA services, do you have an ish number of the people that you're actually working with? The number of folks that you've served for van and exercise and?
So generally speaking, with Tai Chi and yoga classes tend to have about 10 to 15 people who attend each class. We have the Tai Chi and yoga classes, we tend to make them hybrid as much as we can, because we know that there are some people who can't come in person, and we also have some people who don't live in town who still want to participate. I will not turn anybody away, so I figure that's... Tai Chi classes, they're currently on hold. Our instructor has a leave of absence at the moment, but generally speaking, his classes are about 6 to 8 people again, some in person, some hybrid. Van rides, last year we serviced about 17 of the residents, but we had some residents who were weekly, multiple times a week riders, and then we had some residents who were just periodic. We've noticed we have had some issues with van drivers and, making sure that we can offer coverage as much as we can. Right now, we're at 3 days a week. It really does ebb and flow. We try to accommodate as many people as we can at the same time. So if we do have people that are going in the same direction, we will take multiple riders on at the same time. We still have our COVID protocols in place. We still ask people to wear masks while they're on the van. But there was one time last summer where I swear we had 7 calls for appointments going in 4 different directions, and we had to tell them that we could take the 2 going the same direction, but unfortunately the rest of them we couldn't accommodate, and they had to reschedule. We always try to tell people, as soon as you get an appointment, call me, we'll put it down, we'll get it going, and people are very good about that as a whole. We do offer transportation to the grocery stores every week. We just tell people be flexible with us, and obviously if we have a medical appointment that has to get prioritized, but we're not going to forget you if you do need to go to the grocery store as well.
Okay. Same thing for social services-ish?
That one varies a bit more. So in terms of the applications, I could say that I probably had about 5 to 10 families reach out to me regarding Northbrook Village specific housing applications. We have a couple of people as well, probably 3 to 5, I've assisted with the CHAMP application, so that's the Section 8 state version of it. For Shine, so I became a Shine counselor since June, and then I really started getting calls come September. So since then, I think I've had about 15 residents already. And most of those have been one-offs. So I suspect that as that word gets out too, that'll become more. Field assistance, I think I've had about 3 or 4. Veterans, it's 1 or 2. And then the public safety stuff, that one ebbs and flows. Again, I would say it's another 5 to 10 residents, but some of them have been more frequent than others.
So on your general information slide, down the bottom where you said about 109-ish, 109 families served, are those seniors or are those combinations of?
Combo.
Okay. So out of the 30 to 35% of the elderly folks in town, I am one, what do you think that your percentage is of that you're actually serving and talking to?
On a general, like, average, I would say maybe 5 to 10%. I would love to make that higher. I'm definitely one of those services where I've noticed that people are like, I don't need you, but boy, am I glad you exist, because if I do need you, I'll call you. I've gotten that comment more times than I can count. I've had some times where there's been some residents that I've worked with, they've either passed on or they've moved away as well. Again, the nature of the job. I think I'm trying to do a bit more collaboration, just generally speaking, with the Northbrooks, particularly with Northbrook 2, because again, I know that that's a very high-risk population as a whole. Like I said, I would love to do more. I just, at this point, my hands get tied with just time and everything else.
And then Scott stole my other question, so you're off the hook. Again, was not planned ahead of time. He always sneaks in before me, so you're good.
Yeah, any other questions?
If someone was looking to do yoga, would it be on your website?
Yes.
On the COA
It's on the
website?
COA website. It is in the Powder House. And I have had that question even emailed to me. Or, people will just call like, hey, I'm new to town. What do you guys do for classes? And we'll call and we'll get them the info that they need.
Do you use the item to publish stuff? Because I had a recent conversation with Jan, and her exact words were, Berlin is a tough nut to crack. They really don't share a lot, so.
So I have in the past, but I know that there was some issues, I think, before just getting I have in the past, I haven't recently. I'm not opposed to using the item again.
Yeah.
But I haven't done anything with them recently.
Well, the nice thing is that you can get it online too, so it kind of like
Yeah.
blends right into your
Yeah,
literacy
exactly.
class. And they're always down at the general store for that, so I'm just trying to think of more ways to get the word out. And where Berlin is rarely mentioned in the item, this might be an opportunity to blast something
I wonder
out.
what the percentage of people in Berlin that read the item are.
I'm sure I could get that from her, or
Yeah.
electronic requests. I can ask her.
Okay.
Because I submitted some stuff to her for the Women's Auxiliary, and that prompted her comment about she rarely hears anything from Berlin.
We're kind of quiet, that's why.
To each their own. Any other questions?
No, I
No,
think we're all
I'm
set.
good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Come on down.
Good evening. All right, before you is the monthly report for January, not December, as it says at the top of the page, so my apologies on the typo. It just goes through, clearly, January is one of our slower months call volume-wise and stuff, so we did see a dip in the calls for the month of January. However, the severity of those calls still remain kind of high, with a pretty serious building fire, chimney fire, some vehicle fires, and motor vehicle accidents. Fire prevention activity for that month also remained pretty steady for what we usually see. For activity for the month, I highlighted again, the unique calls for the fire department that we had that month, which we kind of spoke about last month after they happened, with the overdoses that we saw and the house fire that we saw. The fire watch at the Berlin Memorial School is continuing. The new fire pump has been shipped and should be arriving at the school in the next week or so is what our hope is. To the best of our knowledge, the fire pump and the sprinkler system should be up and operational by the end of March. So I knock on wood with that. We haven't run into any problems as of yet. So hopefully we're still on track with that.
Boy, the guys are going to be so, they
Yeah.
won't know what to do with themselves.
Yep, exactly. It'll be, hopefully it'll, yeah. So staffing, unfortunately, for January was a little bit of a struggle. We still had 38 shifts that were unfilled at that point. We're trying some new ideas.
Do you have to go?
I'm gonna have to go.
Okay.
Yep, I apologize.
Sorry.
Bye, Mike.
I will catch up with you guys
Got your
afterwards.
report.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
This is like the fifth call since 5 o'clock this evening.
Yeah.
What's that?
This is about the fifth call since 5 o'clock this evening.
Wow.
It's been a wild night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
How many
right.
more times to get questions for him? I only had 2.
Be nice, Peg.
I love Fire Mike, I really, really do, so he gets little questions.
All right. Kristen, you're on.
Okay.
Town administrator report.
I want to start with something that we received information about today because I want to get this on camera and out to the residents. We did a challenge, if you recall, way back last summer to Berlin's population numbers for 21 and 2021, and 2022. So as you know, the census does every 10 years, but they do what's called, I believe it's an American Communities report or update every year. And we found out that they were using basically the data that came in through Highland Ridge and, not Highland Ridge, I'm sorry, River Bridge building rates to multiply that and calculate our percentages out. So if you recall that, we had to get them some amended and updated building permit information, and I am pleased to report that we received a letter today from the Federal Census Bureau that the town of Berlin's population has been revised to, drum roll please, as of 2022, we are at 3,365 residents. So they had us over 3,600 residents based on this sort of calculation that they do where they amortize, I don't know, they map it out. So there are a number of benefits that are afforded to smaller communities, particularly those under 3,500 in terms of being able to serve multiple positions in the town and, you know, not having to worry as much about special municipal employees in a way that we would basically have to go and name like everybody a special municipal employee if we were over 3,500, and some other Mass General laws which would become applicable if we were over that population count. So we're very thankful. Actually, it was UMass Amherst has a public consulting center that reached out to us regarding this number and said, hey, we noticed all your information isn't really in here to make a correct analysis. And so we were happy to have the opportunity to resubmit. So that is exciting news. And we're still small. So good news on the FY25 budget. I've completed all of my meetings and FinCom has concluded all of their hearings with the exception of the Berlin-Boylston Regional School District, which will take place Wednesday, March 6th at 7:40 p.m. right here, if anyone's interested in attending. Just another reminder for FinCom, they will be meeting every Wednesday at 7:30 through March. On the other weeks when we're not having hearings, we're going to start passing portions of the budget. So please come ask questions. You are all welcome, and they are also hybrid now. So if you go on to our MyTownGov website, /Berlin, or it's 01503, put in the zip code, you can find us and the link to the meetings if you would like to attend from the comfort of your own home. I have a hopefully final draft warrant before you in terms of articles, which total 30 plus it's actually just 2 possible additional articles, not 3. And we do have another reminder I'd like to put out about the annual town meeting for 2024, which will be Monday, May 6th. 7:30 in the Berlin Memorial School gym. Really excited about this one. We have received a $500,000 Complete Streets grant from the Massachusetts Department of Transportation to improve pedestrian safety, connectivity within and around the center by building sidewalks, ADA compliant access ramps, installing bike racks, and paving the associated roads basically around what would be called a traditional common, if you will, which is Carter Street, Woodward Ave, over to 62. So it's going to hopefully help with some of the parking and the walkability and in that sort of downtown area, if you will. So really excited. The town put together what's called a complete streets prioritization plan of projects to be done in town back in 2016. And this is the first time we've submitted a grant and we were successful. So really excited about that. So that, I just actually got the contract today and that'll all have to go out to bid. That's obviously a large project. I'll be working very closely with Fred, but obviously the engineering work and construction will be going out to bid. So I anticipate that is going to ultimately probably end up being a springtime of 25 project by the time everything is all said and done, possibly a fall 25, depending on how long the design plans take. Facilities study is almost there. I had a great meeting on Friday with Bureau Veritas, and the final drafts are in the works. They will be here by the first week of March, and we will be sending them out to everybody, Select Board, FinCom, Capital Planning Committee, Planning Board, everybody who I can think of that could possibly be interested. We'll put it on our website and seek feedback. I'm hoping to be able to get feedback by the end of March. Depending on when we actually get the reports, and I will send that information out. There's also a space needs analysis portion of the study and the preventative and ongoing maintenance database, which we're going to receive, that we are going to be trained on, that we can actually go in and update for each facility, which I think is going to be great. We have confirmed with Phyllis Tower, our animal control officer, that she is willing to be both the ACO and the animal inspector, subject to board approval. She has been the ACO and she's done a great job. The current animal inspector is retiring, and I apologize, it's not March 31st, it's April 30th. We had been working back and forth between the Board of Health and Police Department and everything, so it's a little bit of a weird date. It's the Mass Department of Agricultural Resources that does the oversight for animal inspectors, and they go on a May 1st to April 30th year, because why not? We're also working on the Berlin Memorial School lease. Had a good meeting last week with both of our councils, and there will be a small list of what the school is referring to as substantive changes that they are requesting to the lease for the select board to review at an upcoming executive session. In that meeting, both myself and our town council, Heather White, stressed to them that the lease was really in final form. There was some miscommunication on their end where the superintendent had no idea it had been previously worked upon by her predecessor and finance director, so she thought it was a first draft. So she understood, and they've been asked to pare back their comments, and we'll have a new one to come before the board shortly. He's hoping to get those comments out this week, so perhaps we can just have a monster executive session next Monday. We'll see what happens.
Better put your coffee.
I hope it's not a monster.
Or not, no, a
executive
short
session.
one, but a
Yeah.
multiple subject executive session, we'll say that.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, yeah, I shouldn't have used the word monster, that's the wrong word.
I don't want to talk that long about the.
Yeah, no, I
Thank you.
understand. Also received good news from our health insurance agent. We were told to initially budget 12% for health insurance increase, which we always know is high. Then we went to the Massachusetts Municipal Conference in January, and they said budget 10%, which we said yay. Well, we are at 7.27% on our
Wow.
increase, so not terrible. Planned an insurance advisory committee meeting for next week to discuss the increase in premiums, which can be offset by plan redesign should the IAC make that recommendation to the select board. Or what I suspect is probably more likely, they'll recommend taking the increase in premium because they did institute the deductible last year, but I don't want to speak for the group. However, the trend historically, from what I understand, is when the premium increase is relatively small, they take the premium increase as opposed to plan redesign. So that all will be finished up by the beginning of April. So we'll be bringing that forward. And had a great meeting with the Energy Committee on February 6th, talked about a number of topics, and we are working on a Green Communities grant, working with Tim Wysocki and Guardian Energy on putting together some costs for this building, which actually may end up having to do with the HVAC system. And we are doing also, if you remember that grant we got from the insurance company for an assessment of the system that then could feed into the getting a grant for the recommendations that are the outcome of that assessment. So, and Guardian Energy is really great at pricing out the cost for that work. They are a state-approved vendor. I've actually worked with them in the past, and so we'll see what they give us for information. And also, one of the interesting topics was, can we make Berlin a climate leader community, which is the next phase of green communities. So Berlin obviously has been a green community since 2012, since way back. And the next phase in that is to get to like a net zero green community, looking at LEED buildings and things of that nature. It is a big jump in building code, and that's something that I believe the Energy Committee plans to have a lot of public presentations and discussions about over the next year, and potentially bring something forward to the 2025 town
Our
meeting.
highway building is net zero,
Yes.
except that, oh, now
Well, now
it
we've
will
got the
be.
solar, yeah.
Now it will be, but it was built that way.
Yeah, this would actually apply to the entire community. So my thing
Right.
is, obviously you need to get input from developers and builders, and you want to get input on both sides, on the conservation, on the green side, and also seeing how onerous those requirements are for development. And you kind of fall somewhere in between and see if you can get everybody relatively on the same page. I
Right.
think you have a decent chance here with the way that things have gone in Berlin, which I love. So hopefully we can move forward with that. And let's see. Food pantry lease is on the agenda this evening. Still meeting with the group from Boylston to discuss the regional school budget. And we are talking about setting up a revolving fund for the transfer station. So a lot of things going on.
Our transfer station was like state-of-the-art years and years ago. I think we were like one of the first to have like the best transfer station with all the things that we recycled, and so I guess then we moved on to green communities.
There you go. And now maybe climate leader community.
Yeah.
So that's all I have for you. I imagine you might have some questions.
All right. Questions?
Yeah, if it could. The benefits of having a revolving fund, because I am generally opposed to more funds and more little pools of money that require auditing and tracking, and I mean, we already have pages upon pages of all these little funds, and I would love all of them to go away, and so getting new ones is not what is the benefit of this?
So it's actually a change. They already have an offset account. So you'd be actually transferring it to a revolving fund. The incentive is the transfer station would be able to keep their receipts that they earn and be able to put it directly back into the transfer station operations. So they're funding more through their own receipts, which gives them more incentive to, look at their fees and make sure that they're charging appropriately. So they're starting to, evaluate that and charge for individual, like larger items and things of that nature. Right now, I look at it as sort of a fairness issue. Whatever they don't budget goes back to the general fund. So in this case, they're starting to really do well down there and taking in more receipts, and they'd be able to keep those receipts, and it would revolve. It's in and out. So.
Right, because in some respects, right now, as an offset account, they spend that money first and then taxpayer money second. If it's a receipts account, they're going to spend taxpayer money first and the revolving fund second.
Not necessarily. So the way I would recommend it is all of their expenses would come out of the revolving fund, and the only thing you would keep in the general budget would be payroll. Because you generally always want to have personnel expenses in operating. So right now, we have, usually their expense budget, like for this year, it's estimated, I think, at 160,000 plus personnel, and we take 135 out of the offset account. So if we could get to that spot, and for the first year, I'd probably leave like 30,000 in expenses, and then we would eventually work to get that line item to be self-sufficient.
But we're doing away with offsets.
Oh yeah, the state wants us to do away with offsets too, don't they?
It's the only one that's left on the books, so
Yeah.
we get rid of the offset receipts and just work with.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an older way of doing things, but they like to see it this way. Then you can have the bylaw, you can set a cap on spending every year, and then you really see what they charge for stickers and for fees. Whatever that brings in is what they can expend on transfer station operations.
My other questions will wait to the end because they're more appropriate there.
Okay, Peg?
Did you get my draft on the feedback for the buildings? I'm sure it's probably buried somewhere in your email.
I saw it. I haven't
Okay.
had a chance to respond yet.
Okay, all right. As long as I know that you have it.
I do have it, yes.
Do you have any idea how much money we've spent on legal fees with the back and forth on the BMS lease that was oh so close 2 years ago when Margaret was here and has just kaboomed and gone out of control? That's a new word, by the way.
Kaboomed? or-
Kaboomed.
Kaboomed.
Mhm.
I can find out.
Okay. I'm just curious.
Sure. I mean, town council did a very minimal review of it because they were under the understanding, as was I, that it was done. So they helped me do a couple little updates to some sections where there were holes in it, so they didn't spend a lot of time.
Mhm.
And then we had one one-hour meeting.
Okay.
We definitely used less legal counsel when we turned it back to the schools and said, no.
Good.
Correct.
I mean, I tried to figure out what the redlining, what was redlined. Couldn't figure it
Everything.
out. I just kind of threw my hands up and said, forget it, because that would have cost a fortune
Yeah.
on legal.
Yeah.
And that was the conversation we had, was like, let's take it to the board and stop, send it back the way it was, and go from there, as opposed to having town council go through all those red lines and try to sort all of that out. So there
Yeah,
definitely was a savings
Maybe
there.
she could have figured it out, but I couldn't.
It was a lot.
It was. I had a hard time following it.
And then on the last one, where the Berlin-Boylston Regional School District, they're finally coming on March 6th. What is the impact on the overall timing to the budget? How much of a deadline are you going to be up against to get us a final budget, to go to finance, to get their final budget, and to have the debates begin?
A huge, very, very short window, because they have until March 22nd to give us a final number and an assessment letter in writing, and that is what goes on the warrant. So typically, we have them come at the beginning of February. We have 6-7 weeks to be able to go back and forth and come up with a number that everybody agrees upon. The school committee is going to see the budget for the very first time tomorrow. I would be surprised if they vote it as it's presented for the first time. So, I mean, that's not necessarily advisable for anyone to vote a budget the first time they see it, so I understand that. So there's gonna be some back and forth over the next couple of weeks with the school committee. My fear is if I get this number March 15th, March 18th, March 20th, there's no time and no room to bring it back to the FinCom, to bring it to the select board, to go back and forth. And we're just going to have to accept the number that's presented to us, and we'll have to present a secondary FinCom recommended budget, because there won't be time for any type of discussion or negotiation.
Well, we don't have to accept the number.
We do have to print it in the warrant according to our regional agreement, and then we can print a recommended FinCom budget.
And when is the printing for that? Ish?
So their deadline is March 22nd to give it to us. We have until April 12th to mail it to residents. It has to be mailed out
Jeez, that's.
before or on April 12th.
One
So there is
second. So that's
not
3
time.
weeks.
Well, but even
I
if
see what
that's the
you're saying.
requirement, I've always said that we should be
Yeah, just
trying to get this
saying
out to
no.
people a month ahead of time,
Yeah,
which is
no,
April
exactly.
4th.
Correct.
'Cause it's not
And
gonna come in
so,
at
but even
2%.
if you do April 12th, this was going to be one of mine afterwards, but if we're on the topic, we might as well hit this.
What, I'm sorry,
the
what were you
school
saying?
The school,
The budget.
just the general budget. And so if you work backwards, that the town meeting is May 4th. I think
April
mailing it
12th.
April 12th is too late, but let's even say April 12th. You know, that means that it has to be to the printer.
At least a week before.
At least a week
Usually
before.
they say 9 to 10 days.
Right, so by.
you're talking beginning of April.
April 1st, which makes us in some respects, late for getting something on even March 22nd. There's not enough time for meetings except to put in there. And so I am still of the opinion that we as a town, lacking a formal budget request, have to have a number of what we're willing to put in the budget for the schools prior to them finishing their final budget.
I think we did
We'll have-
agree on
we'll-
one, did we not?
We'll get a preliminary number on March 6th, and somewhere between March 6th and, towards the end of March, we'll have to, both with FinCom and Select Board, decide what we're willing to put in our budgets. I do not want to have, and I didn't even attend it last year, the 11 PM meetings.
We missed you. There was lots of chocolate.
Going up to, between
Couldn't go
March
to sleep when
22nd
you got
and
home.
April 1st. It's untenable.
So Julie, did you
Agreed.
have something to add?
I just wanted to add that, come on.
Come on up.
We
Well,
can't
it's
hear you
Zoom.
otherwise.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we
No,
can hear you.
on the mic.
Hey,
I'm
nice sweatshirt.
Very nice.
Yeah, because you're my style.
Hey, good wash. I would have worn it tonight.
That's one of the comfiest sweatshirts I've ever owned.
Heard this. I really want one.
No, I just wanted to point, I went to the Boylston FinCom where the school committee presented a few weeks ago, and it sounded like the chair was under the impression that they would vote the 22nd or thereabout, the school committee could vote, no, the week before the 22nd. So they would have the vote a week before the letter was due, and that 1 week would be enough time to have the discussions. So I think
If that's all you want to do all week.
Well, but if we're in the same ballpark, then the discussions are easy, because you and I remember on FinCom where, there was some discussions, and we were always in the same ballpark, and we figured out a way to get
Then
to
those
places.
days, they were easy,
Yeah,
weren't
that's
they?
right.
But from the Boylston FinCom meeting, it seemed like they were still working out the final numbers, and they still hadn't sorted out how they were handling the SRO officer.
Correct.
So it sounded like they still had a lot of range going on.
Yeah,
So-
and I will say, to add to that, the initial numbers we were invited, or I was invited to attend a budget subcommittee meeting a couple weeks back, and those were very preliminary numbers, so I assume, if anything, they would hopefully come down. But it's an 18.7% increase for Berlin Memorial and a 14% increase for Tohoto, when I plugged those numbers into my spreadsheet.
Now, the email that I sent you with some of the other schools in the area, thanks, Julie.
No problem.
Wouldn't our district be embarrassed to share their requests with the other towns in that survey?
So I'm going to ask the
That's
captain obvious
embarrassing.
questions, because maybe I missed it in the bevy of emails. Did we ever get a level service budget from them, or the one that they provided initially looks terribly like the one that you sent out a couple weeks ago? Was there one in between that was missed? So they never, so all
They
this,
still haven't given us an official one yet.
yeah, right, but all this discussion that they're having with, Mass, who are they?
Mars.
Thank you, I was close. That they're dealing with, that they're gonna come back to us, that you have to start high and then come down low.
That's
Do
not
I wanna
even
call it
true.
something but not call it something on TV? I mean,
Cable?
cable.
We are working on a letter.
Yeah.
And the idea is to have it be a joint letter from the select board, signed by, like we did before, a follow-up to the letter that was sent by the select board chair and the FinCom chair.
With both towns?
Yep, with both towns, basically sending them a unified message that we need the information, reiterating that we need the information, and informing them that we're asking them to stick to 2.5% as we requested back in the fall. And I have my marching orders from the FinCom to finish building my budget with a 2.5%. So if the select board wanted to give me the same marching orders, I would certainly be open to
I
a
thought we
motion.
did.
Did you already do
I
that?
think we've already done that.
Sorry, I've been in
So-
budget land.
That's-
So is it the money from last year minus free cash, and that's plus the 2.5%, or is it?
Correct.
Okay. So it's
Which
even-
is in dispute. So I also have legal counsel working on that as well, because they're starting with part of the reason it's an 18.7% increase for Berlin Memorial, they were saying it was only a 3% increase. because they were starting with including that $700,000 that we had a gap with, saying that that is our assessment. And my argument is that that was one-time emergency special education free cash funding, along with additional additional circuit breaker and school choice money that they put in. So how can we be responsible, at a minimum, for the money that they put in, let alone the one-time funding that we made it very clear was just until we saw the retroactive reimbursement on special education?
So given how they blatantly just ignored last year's 2.5% increase letter, hey, that's great, make it into an airplane, whiz it across the room, look who's back. You know, and this year, they did the same, blatantly ignored it. Do you really, no disrespect, but do you really think it's gonna make a difference if we send another joint letter, given their behavior that they've had over the past few months? And I know that you need to do it.
Well, it's like a warning that this is what's going to happen at town meeting, and this is what we're going to do.
And you don't have, let's just pretend, let's live in Peg's pretend land, that we go, it's like Peg math, that we go with the budget that they presented, right? All hunky-dory. And you're saying 18% for BMS, 14% for Tohoto.
Let's round it to 19, because it's 18.7.
Okay, 19. All right, we'll do 19. We like Peg math. Any wild speculation, again, how the tax people are gonna get hit? We got hit last year with 4%. There's people literally moving out of town because they cannot afford it. We do this again, it's gonna happen again. So what is our ultimate message back to to BPRSD or whoever they are?
People at town meeting need to vote for a lower budget. I mean, they asked for a lot last year, and they got it a lot last year at town meeting.
And this can't continue.
We're 3 people who vote at town meeting, and so it takes a half the people at town meeting to change the budgets.
So.
I tried to move into town so it could help. Is Marlboro close enough? Will you let me vote? All right, fine.
No.
So is the letter that you're planning on putting together from joint Berlin and Boylston basically saying, that's great, thanks for your letter, here's your amount, here's the 2.5%, this is what we're doing with it?
It does a number of things. That's one of them. The other is asking for information, because we need to see what their actual expenditures are over the past 5 years, which is something I think is really important for us to see, and broken down by category, so we can see what's special education. I also want to see what their FY24 numbers are to date on expenditures and revenues, as well as I would really just like to see numbers before I say this is the impact to taxpayers, because I haven't been given a number yet. I think I know where you're getting at. Like, what is that dollar amount increase on the tax bill? I'm hoping to have better guidance after the meeting tomorrow night. This, like I said, these numbers had not been seen by the school committee yet. This was just a budget subcommittee. So I do want to make that really clear, which is why I haven't done the math yet.
Right, although budget subcommittee is still a public meeting, and so everything that's said there
Absolutely.
is a public number, so it's not like you're violating any confidentiality by saying any of these numbers.
Not at all. I just don't think of them as final in any
Yeah,
shape
yeah.
or form, so I just don't want people to be like, oh my God, it's definitely a 19% increase. Do you know what I mean? That number could very likely change, and I do think it will change.
So are we going
To
to?
20.
Well, it could,
Are we going to plan to have a joint FinCom and Berlin Select Board meeting like we did last time, hopefully not till 11 o'clock?
Yeah, I mean, part of what
Can we
we're
get it
doing
on the
right
books?
now with the town admins, the select board chairs, and the FinCom chairs.
No, she's talking about just us, I think,
Just us.
Berlin.
no,
Oh.
but if FinCom
Yeah.
and Select Board are on the same page, there's no reason for that meeting.
Okay.
I mean, I in some respects am
I think
willing
we
to
are.
wait to the
I
6th,
think
have
we
some
are too.
hope that
Okay.
the presentation tomorrow night, to the presentation to FinCom, that some of our fears are not as bad. I'm not 100% confident that's going to be the case, but I'd like to at least have some hope that potentially those come out. And then after the 6th, FinCom will vote on what their formal recommendation will be. We'll vote on our formal recommendation, and on the 22nd, we'll put in the requested column, whatever number they give us.
I'm with
Because we
you.
will have already be on the same page for the recommended column.
Right.
I think what's most important is making sure Berlin and Boylston are on the same page.
That would be nice.
And that's why I think continuing to have those conversations are very important, and understanding where they're at with their numbers, because we ultimately need to need to be on the same page, or we're gonna end up with this district meeting or 112 budgeting or all of those scary things that we talked about last year. So we really opened up those lines of communication with Boylston, and I think that's where we need to put our efforts is, like you said, get the numbers, put our heads together and see what we can come up with.
And we do have a Berlin and Boylston meeting this week,
Yep.
correct?
We do.
And, well, maybe we can chat sometime before that.
Sure.
Right, because that'll be after the formal numbers release presented to the school board.
Right,
Right.
right.
Correct.
And hearing some of the school board questions to it, because
Yep.
they
And is-
could also go, this, we as taxpayers of the town think this is too much and would like to find some cuts in it, so.
And was this the meeting where the audit was going to be also, or was that previous?
I'm not sure. I have to
I
check.
think they said the audit was before they presented the budget,
So that would be tomorrow?
tomorrow, yeah.
Okay. So, interested to hear what this audit is all about, because I'd like to audit them. All right, so we should probably move on unless somebody has another
I
urgent
just,
question.
The open to the street grant we just got for $500,000.
Yes.
That would be a great, paragraph or two to send over to the item.
Yep.
As a press release.
Okay, sure.
What was it, the half a
The
million?
clean,
The open streets, the streets.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
we've missed the deadline for this week. What's today?
Yeah,
Monday.
but.
Might be able to get it in.
It is something for 2025,
Yeah, for
and so
next
even
week.
if it's next week or
So
the
if you
week
get it in
after.
like this week, it will be in not this Friday, but the next Friday?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, Tuesday's.
But yeah,
cutoff.
complete streets for $500,000 to the town is worthy of saying in a couple of places.
Yeah. We got some-
Lots of good stuff. Get lots of
I'd-
quotes from like
well,
Fire Mike.
If the
and
item
Fred
wasn't
and-
part of the
Give me a
Telegram.
quote. Yeah.
Yeah, if the item wasn't part of the Telegram and Gazette, I'd send it to them as well, so.
Yeah.
We'll talk later.
Good answer.
I was going to ask, since
And we could give
Chief is
Gordon
back,
what
do we
school
want
budget
to?
is.
Chris? Sorry.
I was going to ask if, since Chief is back, if we wanted to let him finish his report.
If I miss my opportunity, that's okay.
You never miss your opportunity. I was kind of bummed because I was psyched that I would have more time to find more questions for you. But now that you're back, I only got two.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
You're buzzing again.
Yeah, they're transporting to the hospital, and it was, it
Your
was.
timing is suspicious, sir.
It's been one of those days.
Yep. It actually, yes.
All right, well, yeah, so, we have some new staff that's coming on board for our call firefighters. They've been delayed just with the changes in the treasurer's office and getting them on board with the paperwork and stuff, but I'm happy to say that they'll be ready to go as of March 1st. And I have two more that are in background checks right now, which will bring us to a total of 5 new call firefighters coming on the department. And I'll probably hold off on any new hires after that, just because trying to train and onboard 5 members at once is going to be a little challenging for us. So it'll be kind of good to have some new blood and some new trainees to work with. January, we did a lot of training, which was really good. We had the opportunity to do some destructive training with a building that was being demolished in town. So crews got to do what we call combined operations exercises, where they got to cut holes in roof. They were able to stretch hose lines, breach walls, flow water and stuff. The only thing we weren't able to do is actually have fires in the building, which is invaluable training for us when we get that, because it's a lot different than using a concrete building with a gas-fed fire when you have a real building that you can burn. But that one, it was just some very good training. It went very well. We spent time going over a lot of the reporting information that we have through the National Fire Service, where we had a class on that, which is very dry material, but it was very important for the members to know how that gears towards the reporting requirements for the state and the National Fire Service. And we did our EMS training, which was the mandatory training from the state on bloodborne pathogens and proper PPE for the responders and the patients. For initiatives, I'm continuing to highlight our home safety check program that's available to any resident who wants to have that. We've assisted many with that didn't have working smoke detectors or carbon monoxide detectors. And if they're interested, I would like them to reach out to Lieutenant John Polino at fireprevention@townofberlin.com, or call the station to schedule a safety check, and we'll be happy to come out and see you. I will always use this opportunity to mention that smoke detectors and carbon monoxide save lives, so please make sure you have working ones in your house. Continue to work closely with our mutual aid partners. We've had a couple meetings on just collaboration again, and kind of increasing our response capabilities for serious fires and car accidents. And that seems to work out very well, especially on 495. We had a call today and stuff with a joint response with Bolton, and it just makes us more efficient, and it's better for those that are suffering from the emergency because they get a quicker, more efficient response. I'm happy to say that we actually are moving forward with the training with representatives of CSX coming in to go over rail line safety and emergencies that occur in there right away. So my hope is at the end of March, that'll be something that we'll be doing. I had a meeting last week with emergency management directors in our region, and that was one of the things that was brought up, was that nobody seems to have contact with CSX to be able to get answers and have training and stuff. So I also haven't shared the contacts that I have at this point until I know that our training is set before I actually share it with the other departments and stuff. But it will be a regional training that we'll be doing here that we'll have with police and fire and our regional partners to open it up to as many as we can. I'm happy to report that we have some grants that are coming in that we have for our hazardous mitigation grant, which is called an MPG grant. And that kind of helps us with something that's required by the government for us to do every 5 years in order to keep our plan up and going so that we're able to get other grant money. The grant will cover that with, we'll be looking at 3 or 4 different companies that can do that, can work with us to identify the hazards in town, kind of identify those hazards and what to do with them in the future and stuff. So that'll be going out. That'll be something we'll be working on. Another grant that we received is called an MPG grant, which is an emergency management preparedness grant. And that is in the sum of $5,900, which we'll be using to upgrade our IT capabilities in our EOC, which is also our training room. One of the things that we were able to do this time was we partnered up with Lancaster to receive a total of $5,900, as opposed to us alone, we would have received $2,700. Again, looking at a regional response to things, if we have to open an EOC, it gives Lancaster the ability to be able to be in here with us and have a dedicated computer and radio and phone to utilize. And if something was to happen locally here that we couldn't use our EOC because of a disaster, everything will be portable and tote so that we can actually move to a different site in Lancaster.
Sorry, if I could interrupt. EOC, for people who are watching, I have it printed in front of me, but...
Emergency Operations Center. So during any disaster that we have, whether it's if it's a flooding event, tornado, an ice storm type of thing, we'll open the EOC to be able to coordinate a tactical response between police, fire, highway, and we'd have the finance kind of planning divisions in there and the stuff that we'd be using over a multi-day period. So that's what the Emergency Operations Center is for. Thank you for that.
Yep.
And as you probably saw in the news recently last month, we received a grant from the Department of Fire Services for $25,000, which was reduced from the original amount of $50,000 that we were supposed to get because of the governor's budgetary constraints that they had. That money's being used to some additional PPE that we're going to get. It's not going to fund everything that I was hoping I was going to be able to get. One of the things I was looking at doing is enhancing our forestry capabilities just because our equipment's getting old. And I was also looking at doing some of the ballistic equipment that we would need to respond to some type of a hostile event, whether it's an active shooter or any type of a violent event that may happen at one of the stores or something like that. So I'm readjusting what we're going to be using that money for, but we're still going to use it for personal protective equipment for the crews. I have several other grants, and I don't know what it is. I don't know why the government puts them all at once, but this has been the last 2 months of my life has been nothing but grants, reading about grants, seeing whether or not we're eligible for them. But I'll be applying for some more to see if we can get some additional funds to use for the operations of the fire department. The building company, I know last month I had updated that we had some delays and stuff just because of different things going on, training on their side and our new RMS system that we had, a record management system. And I'm happy to say they're caught up on that. They're receiving all of our calls. Their training has caught them up so that they're actually moving through our calls and we're back to receiving our revenue, or at least getting it processed. And the other update that I have for you is on the upstairs renovation. I did actually meet with Assabet. They had reached out to me, and they were looking at a start date of trying to start that project in late fall of this year. So I'm trying to work with them to see how we might be able to pull that off to look at using some of our mitigation funds to put towards that for the, if you will, the materials that we're going to need. One of the things I did find out is, I believe, last month we had appropriated up to $30,000 to buy the final design plans for the architectural design of the upstairs. Unfortunately, that money would buy us what we already have. So as I met with them and talked and went through, it's just going to replicate what we already have. So talking with Kristen, we're probably going to put that out to RFP for the entire project and stuff, and that way it'll give us the engineered drawings that Assabet will need to actually do the project. And my hope is with that materials list, the way Assabet actually works is it'll be the materials plus about 15% that they'll charge for us. That 15% goes back into their budget to replace any of the equipment that gets broken, wear and tear, the van, the fuel to get the van over here with the kids and stuff. And if the project, once the project starts, it's about 12 to 16 months for them to complete the project. So that's where we kind of are at that. It's kind of it's bad timing just because we're already in the budget process and stuff, but I'm looking at trying to work with Kristen to look at the mitigation funds to see what we can use for that, so it's not a tax impact to anybody in the community. It's just coming from the public safety mitigation funds.
And that's, so just to add on
Yep.
to that too, one of the things that we're trying to figure out, and this is like a chicken and an egg scenario right now with town meeting being so close, you do have 148,000 left in the ARPA funding, but probably somewhere around 50,000 of that is going to be needed to do the plans, right?
Yep.
So that leaves you, let's say, $100,000 to get started on materials.
Yep.
And it's great that Assabet wants to take this on. I'm really excited, and they programmed this in, so if they wanted to start us in the fall, that's because they're finishing up a project, I believe, right now.
Yes, which will have the opportunity. Right now they're working on the Southborough Community Center, which they're happy to have everybody come and tour once they're done, so you guys can see the quality of their work before we utilize them for ours. But yes, that's what they're finishing up right now.
And I think what excited them the most about our project was that it was really a soup to nuts in that they got to have the different disciplines work with each other, from HVAC to electrical to carpentry.
Yep.
And so it would be an amazing learning experience for the kids to understand how to work across disciplines.
Yep.
So something we need to talk about, and that's why there's a potential other article on the warrant, is mitigation money and trying to understand how much we would need to put aside for materials, getting us to at least December special town
Yes.
meeting, or possibly till next May if we're going to have not have a town meeting in the fall.
Yeah, one of the things I talked to them about is a materials list to figure out what the cost is going to be, but hopefully to be able to do something to get the funds set aside so that we don't lose our spot, if you will, in the fall. And it kind of commits them through, if you will, until May of next year. And then that way it would give us the opportunity either in December or May to raise the additional funds at that point to keep them going after that. But it's just a lot of moving parts and trying to coordinate that.
Happened very quickly
Yeah.
in the last couple of days.
Yeah.
One of the things I think what we're doing is the current architect that we had used for the conceptual designs, you had reached out and asked if he could give us at least an estimate of what
Yes.
the materials would
Yep.
cost. And that's going to give us an idea of, is this something we can afford, how much mitigation money we have, but we need, it's just a lot to try to do at the last minute, but if we can
Yeah.
make this happen, it would save us a tremendous amount of
Yeah.
money, and it
Oh, yeah.
might make this
Yeah.
project a
I'm surprised
reality.
that they would be ready to, or be
I
able
know.
to do it as soon as that. Usually it's a year or
Yeah.
two out.
Well, I think it was one of those things, last year we started discussing this, and I think another thing that was very attractive for them to do this is that it's all inside. And in looking at it, they can actually do a second entrance with a set of stairs to get up through the gable end of the building so that they don't have to interrupt the business, if you will, of town hall and public safety. And it makes it that much better for them that they're all inside. It's a project that every division of their trades are going to be involved in, and they're very excited about that because it's one of the first projects where all of them are going to be working together from the very beginning of figuring out how to do it, to run everything, and to work as a group. So I don't know if that moved us up, but it was one of those things, Wayne Colson and I had not spoken in probably 4 or 5 months, so I figured we were still another year off before that was going to be, and he just happened to reach out and was just
Wow.
like, hey, I just want to touch base with you. He was like, we're kind of moving forward on our end, and we haven't spoken to you in a while, so.
You guys knew
Really
that
exciting.
they did the curatorial
Yeah,
building.
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
they've done great work, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
the idea that, again, local residents, whether it be our town or a nearby town, get some
Yep.
real-world experience and a chance at a trades job, I think is great. And save the taxpayer dollars at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I-
This is another
I
opportunity
would
for a
fig-
really good write-up.
Yeah.
Yes, agreed.
Absolutely.
I know the initial discussions I had was basically said about, usually when you look at the total cost of the project, is usually about a third of what that cost is the materials, and they said that's what they usually tell people to go with. I'm just I want to come up with an actual list so I can give it to people, so people can see the dollar amount with the list, so that it's all, if you will, real money and real materials in front of them that they're looking at.
So hopefully, we're meeting several times in March, perhaps all Mondays in March. Maybe not.
Yeah.
I'm hoping within the next couple of weeks, we'll have some more
Yeah.
information. I do want to put that, like I just kind of left at the bottom of the warrant, a placeholder for that. Because if we can do this, I think it would just be an incredible opportunity. And, with some more information, then maybe the board can take an official vote on it as we get some more pieces of
Yeah.
this together.
Yep.
Good, very good.
Yeah, and I think those are all the updates I have for you, I think. Trying to think if there's anything else.
Time, do you have a question?
Too easy peasy. And since you're talking to CSX, the trash that's on Linden,
Yes.
are they using it, or do they just forget it? Now that the snow is gone,
It's back.
ugly again,
Yeah,
yes.
I saw it the other day and I thought the same thing. In my discussions with the training and stuff, I'm trying to get an answer on that because the last email that I sent went unanswered and that was before the snow came and I covered it all. And again, out of sight, out of mind, I didn't think twice about it. Now it's back again, so I'm asking them what their plan is, but I haven't gotten anything from them on it yet.
Okay. Do you guys do the burning permits, or is that Neshoba?
No, we do the burning permit. Well, it's a program that we kind of manage. There's an online portal for it.
Okay, all right. No, I was just wondering, because obviously with the nice weather, you go outside, you can smell them. And
Yes.
I'm like, does it come to Berlin? Doesn't go to Neshoba? Do people realize it needs to be out by a certain time? Because
Yeah.
I still see them tindering at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yep, we've had a couple already that we've responded to that people have been very upset of us for extinguishing the fire, which we've had to explain to them. You cannot leave it unattended because somebody has to be present with the fire, and there are certain time restrictions to go with it, which when everybody signs online, when they go on and they fill out their form, it's all right there in front of them. It's just that a lot of people don't read it or don't pay attention to it. So yeah, every year we have a few people we need to educate, and for anybody that has any question on anything, I'd strongly advise them to call if they think there's a problem or an issue going on with an open fire.
You're probably referring to what I'm referring to. TJ may have filled you in that I broke into your department on Saturday afternoon because
No.
a resident met me in the parking lot and said, I think there might be a brush fire
Oh,
down the
yes.
street. And I went, well, usually you want to call 911. I mean, but I said, well, since you're
Yep.
right here, let's go talk to the folks.
Yep.
They said, well, it might be brush, and I don't want to be alarmist. And I said, okay, no, I understand that. And TJ was great, and he
Yep.
explained, it is better off to
Yep.
call 911. It doesn't matter. No one's going to get in trouble. Like, it's not a misuse
Yep.
of resources. But it turns out that somebody else had seen it as well. And while we were discussing it, somebody else called. on it
Yeah,
as
because
well.
I got the report that it was a telephone call to the station. I didn't realize you had reported it with a resident as well.
Just before the telephone
Yeah.
call came in.
Yep.
So what is the burning period when you can burn?
It's
Till May 1st?
Yeah, it's January 15th to May 1st. It has to be it cannot be a high fire danger day, which is usually when you'll see them as the high wind warnings or class 4 or class 5 is what the Weather Service will put out. It has to be at least 25 feet away from any structures, including a deck or a shed or anything like that. And it can't be anything over 3 inches in diameter, and it has to be natural wood. It can't be leftover wood from projects that you've done at home or anything like that, or painted materials. And believe it or not, leaves are not allowed to be burned in it.
Oh,
Yep, leaves, they tend to, the heat will actually pick them up as they're burning and travel
Yeah.
them someplace else and create another fire, so.
And they have to be
Good
out
to
by
know.
2.
Yes, yep.
and they have to be what?
Out by 2. Like,
Oh, okay,
no,
when they start.
like smoldering,
You gotta get up
because it's going
at
out,
the
but no like
you-know-what
active
of
flame.
dawn.
Yep. They can
I mean,
start
I'm
in
not
the
planning on
dawn.
burning
Yeah.
anything. That's good to know.
All right. I mean, I know that the ground is wet,
It is right now, but
but
it dries out very quickly. And One of the problems that we had with Mount Pisgah when it caught fire last year was because it was dry and everything hadn't greened up yet, so the fire could travel very quickly. And believe it or not, that fire was not on what they considered a Class 4 or Class 5 day. There wasn't a fire warning that day. The 2 days before there were. But that day the winds were they were changeable just enough that fire spread and it created its own wind. And unfortunately, those are the things you're up against, is even though we've had a very wet winter so far, once things dry out and all that stuff is dead on the top, the fire can spread very quickly. It's not going to burn deep, but it'll burn fast, and it can hit buildings and structures very quickly.
Okay.
So,
See,
yeah.
that's it.
All right. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, thank you. Sorry for the delay.
Don't worry about it. All right, moving on to old business and the FY25 budget.
Okay, so actually, while we have Chief still here, one of the budgets I was looking to ask you to vote on this evening is the fire and EMS budget. It does have a significant increase per the contract because as there were so many unfilled shifts this year, as you just heard, the large adjustment of the $40,000 in year one of the contract we thought we were going to have to make, we did not. That is, however, hitting us in year two, along with the additional approximately $16,000 increase that contract was going to bring in year two. So that does amount to a $67,940 increase overall in wages to meet those contractual requirements and to fill all shifts. It works out to a 12.5% increase. So it is a significant amount of money. So while the chief is here, if you had any specific questions on that, I just wanted to give him the opportunity to answer them. We did go through this with FinCom and went through the contract and, looked at all of that.
So the line talks about wages full-time and part-time, but I think you were just sitting here and you had mentioned on-call.
Yep.
So, you're gonna have to come back up so we can.
I was going to catch you before you left.
it's okay.
We hadn't transitioned yet.
Just gonna get my steps in.
Could you, I got a walking group for you to join if you want steps, just saying. So is on, just for the folks at home for
Yep.
clarity, is on-call equal to part-time, and if not, why?
The on-call is basically, it's the staff that's in town that's on call, so that when we do have a call, they can come back at that point in time. The part-time or per diem firefighters that we have with the full-timers are the ones that are taking shifts that are actually in the building, kind of on duty. And we try to utilize them so that we don't have to use, if you will, the call department until a second or third call comes in, or it's a serious motor vehicle accident or a fire. One of the issues that we're having right now is we do have some call firefighters that will cover shifts and they'll work those shifts, but we're having a shortage of people that are covering those shifts right now. One of the things that I'm looking at doing moving forward is I just switched to, one of the things I did is a new staffing model is I'm going with what we call call groups to try to assign call staff and personnel to groups that are on call so that when a medical call comes in, if there's no one at the station, they're coming in to take the ambulance to make sure we don't have a delay. And if that doesn't work, I'm probably going to take some of the money out of that part-time salary and move it into full-time salaries to put 2 additional firefighters on so that we'll have one person 24/7. And it'll just be reallocating the money from the part-time salary to the full-time salary.
And so that's one of the benefits of moving that part-time, because historically, part-time and full-time were separate lines.
Correct.
You have to do that, so this
Yep.
gives you more flexibility in staffing.
It does.
By having it as one line, and so the people who work full-time, people who work part-time, people who work shifts and on-call are all in that one line.
Correct. We've had, and unfortunately, in the last month, we've probably had 3 very serious medical calls that the PD has been there before us because we didn't have staffing on, and this is one of the things I was hoping to avoid having happen. I was hoping to get some additional staff to step up to the plate that would cover those shifts. And it hasn't happened, so I don't want to see that trend continue. So my hope is that if my stopgap measure here doesn't work and I put one so that I have one firefighter on all the time, it just means we have to have one part-time person that's with them, but there's always somebody to get that truck out the door to at least be there to start rendering aid.
And I'm proposing that combination of wages, part-time and full-time, into one line item for both police and for fire EMS, because we are having transitional issues in both of those departments where, especially with fire, number one, I would say, because you're trying to figure out, you have a long-term plan, as you just outlined, of how to transition in some full-time staff and make this work. But also on the police side, the new contract that they're under has a minimum number of hours that part-timers have to meet in order to stay with the department. So we're seeing the number of part-timers go down, which may necessitate some shifts there as well. So having those line items just gives us a little bit more flexibility, obviously on the police side, and even on fire too. Everything goes through personnel. It would, be vetted. There would be, any new job descriptions that would have to happen and what have you. But, I think having that combined, you can still have it broken down in the back sheets of the budget, but we're always running into this situation when we get to May where we're doing line item transfers between part-time and full-time wages anyways.
So the wages, is that just for your current staff, or is that in anticipation of having more people like these potential 5 folks that you'll have ready to go?
Those 5 folks are going to be under the call department, under, basically, the way I break that up is it's about $60,000 that I use for the call department to staff additional calls to come back in. The wages, I believe there's a full-time wage that's in there. And then the part-time wage is the one that covers all of the open shifts that we have during the day and in the evening. There's 2 every night that is supposed to be covered, that's coming out of.
That increase is just enough to cover the shifts that are open right now.
Yeah.
Right, so the $67,000 increase is not an increase in staffing levels, it's just making sure the staffing pattern you have is actually covered.
Correct, yes.
And the issues that you're having with being able to fill shifts, it's just not a Berlin
No,
issue,
not at
correct?
all. I'm having this conversation with all of our neighboring communities, and it's something that is across the country, it's across New England. We're just not having the people that are interested in volunteerism across the country in every aspect, in Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and, every organization has dropped. One of the things that we're seeing is that if you will, the call firefighters and the volunteers was the first one that we saw the decrease in. Now we're seeing it in our per diem staff, and our full-time staff is getting hit now as well, because that's usually how you progressed from being a call firefighter to going full-time, is you all of a sudden realized you wanted to do it. This is how you got into it. You got certified, and then you became a full-time firefighter. And just across the board, we're seeing a decrease in the amount of people. There's a lot of open positions right now that aren't filled across, basically New England. So it's a struggle, and it's one to figure out how to get back out and try to convince people to come into the organization. And it's, one of the things we're looking at is, and I'll be honest, is I've kind of talked with some of the neighboring departments about using, a resource pool that, is the same, so that we have guaranteed hours, because it's the same, whether it's a Berlin uniform or if they're putting on a Boylston uniform. Correct. So we're trying to figure out how to better utilize our people to cover the calls, and kind of do that mutually and a little bit more efficient, and kind of get rid of the town line and just move those that work together and, that we're similar. Like, I'll be honest with you, Marlboro isn't having the same problems that Berlin is, but Berlin, Bolton, Boylston, we're all having the same issues.
And one of the reasons we made that huge investment in the contract, which was a huge investment, was because we're at a disadvantage nationwide anyways, and then you put the fact that we were paying $15.63 an hour for people to work Monday through Friday overnight, when you can make more at a fast food place. So, I think those adjustments do take time, and we're still
they
going to
do.
struggle because there still is a shortage, but at least it doesn't put us at a double disadvantage that now we're paying ridiculously lower than our neighbors.
Correct.
So do you see enrollment down, like at the academy?
Yeah, we basically see it across the board. It's like the demand for the classes aren't as high as they used to be, meaning that we're not filling them out as quickly as we used to. I'm trying to remember, because it used to be that even like in New Hampshire, I know they had the minimum amount of people in a class was 24, and they just recently dropped that to 18 because they're having a hard time meeting that 24 requirement. So you end up with 19, 20 people that want to take a class, and they don't hold it because they didn't meet that minimum. Now you have 20 people that could have been certified that aren't. So we're kind of seeing that, about trying to put those classes in, to better use to fill them and stuff, and to get as many people into them, but we're not seeing the demand like it used to be. And that's one of the grants that I am looking at putting in for on it's a rural EMS grant that it's centered around substance use disorders and mental health disorders and stuff, and kind of responding to those. But it's a grant that hopefully we can utilize so that we can pay people to actually be in classes. It's designed so that, it wants to follow statistics. It'll pay for the staff to put those numbers in and enter them into a database. But more importantly for us, what I'm hoping is that some of the new people that I have, if they want to take classes, it'll actually cover them to be able to get paid while they're taking that class. Typically, when we have new people come in, we don't pay them when they go take their EMT class or their level 1. That's kind of showing their commitment to us. As things are kind of changing and people are coming in, my hope is to be able to use some of that money to pay them, so there's an incentive there for them to go, and some of my current staff may be able to increase their education by, if they want to become a paramedic, maybe there's an avenue there for them to do that that is going to be paid for by the grant, just to, better what we have and our capabilities.
And your expenses are up just a wee bit. Anything like in that would cause it to go up
No.
just a smidge? I mean, when you're looking over the overall budget, you look at your line, you're like, but, it's just one of those things that someone is gonna hone in
Yeah.
on and be like, what?
So I think the two biggest drivers that I had for that is I had basically the printers that we had and stuff. We had a bunch of old printers and stuff that were all dying, and I consolidated with a central one located in our conference room that everybody's using and stuff, which was through, I think Rico is who we went through that we used for that. I have a online scheduling program that's very similar to what the PD, it's actually the same company the PD uses, called DTS. So we're kind of paying for that, and just some of the general expenses that we've had with the maintenance that have gone up for the apparatus and the equipment as they're kind of getting a little bit older. The tires have gone up considerably, and we've just replaced a bunch of tires as we're getting busier. The ambulances they chew up tires pretty good. So it's those general expenses that have gone up just a little bit, that's what that increase is kind of for.
So forecasting, are there any other huge items? I don't have the capital list in front of me, but 1 year, 2 year, 5 years out for like new truck, new ambulance,
Nope.
anything?
Our new ambulance is hopefully, we might see that as soon as maybe at the end of this year. I would love, but I'm not going to hold my breath on it, just because they haven't impressed me with their scheduled date yet. So once that ambulance comes in, I think we're going to be in pretty good shape with the ambulances for another, probably 5 years is what I'm going to guess, because the A2 will go into backup at that point. Our fire apparatus is sitting pretty good. To be honest with you, I would probably look at consolidating some of my equipment in the future, as opposed to buying something new.
Mm-hmm.
But in the next 5 years, I don't see another piece of fire equipment coming unless something catastrophic happens. Yep, but
Should
our,
probably be covered by insurance.
yes, exactly. Our new engine should be here in September of 2025. Other than some of the smaller stuff that we have for some of the equipment, I think one of the things I was looking at doing was my hydraulic rescue tools that I have right now is swapping all those out to go with the electric hydraulic tools. Well, they're not hydraulic, they're rescue tools, but the electric component of that has come along very well in the last couple of years, that they've become a very standard, a very stable platform to use, and they work very well. And I'll probably look at getting rid of the hydraulic tools. But the cost on those, I mean, compared to a truck and stuff, I don't see a huge, yeah, exactly. So some of that equipment that you'll see that I'll bring before capital and stuff, and to bring before you guys, just as a transparency thing, there's not going to be a huge amount. And right now I foresee that the mitigation money will cover most of that without a problem.
Okay. Scott, you have anything?
No, I'm good.
Okay, then. What other budgets would you like? All the yellow?
So all of the yellow except,
We can excuse Mr. Mike.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay, sorry. I didn't want to jump up this time without knowing. Thank you.
But wait, there's more. Yeah.
right?
Let him sit down first.
Exactly.
Oh, now.
I would ask that we pass over 62 to 65, given some new information I received today. I've learned, we're trying to figure this out because our animal control officer is in a regional agreement with 3 other towns, and that is a full-time regional agreement, so they want us to join with them, or we may not be able to keep Phyllis, because the fact that they have a regional agreement with her, they have the right to tell her she needs to be available on call to those towns during those times, which is 7 days a week on call between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. So the fact that she's been helping us is wonderful, and we really appreciate it. It's going to be a significant increase in cost to join that agreement, so we need to have some further discussions internally before we present something to you. So if we could skip 62 to 65 for right
How
now.
about we have her husband work for Berlin?
All options are on the table. I'm open to any suggestions. I will tell you that the reason she works for so many communities is because there are so few people that have the qualifications, the state training, and the experience to do what she does. And the fact that Boxborough, Littleton, and Stowe all scooped her up speaks volumes. And Bolton and Harvard and Lancaster are also interested, so we may end up in a 7-town agreement.
geez.
So we're having some discussions right now.
Okay.
But if there are any other line items that are highlighted in yellow, those are the ones we're looking to approve. So if you have questions on those, please let me know.
Just clarifying again, you have these 100% and 200% increases, but
Yes.
that under the town administrator, but that's because the lines directly above it under select board are all zeroed out.
Correct.
So as a whole, it didn't look like they were going up by much. If anything, actually looked like even some were down a tiny bit.
Yes, we were trying to level fund. We were able to go, I think we were actually level funded almost across the board. We were level funded in consulting. We were, let's see, where were we at in expenses? When you combined the two expenses together, we were just about level, maybe at like 1.5% above. And then it was just the contractual adjustment on my salary and the 2% cost of living. And that's it. No major changes. And the only slight increase on the expenses are for postage and mailing of the warrants, because those expenses have gone up.
The other thing on yellow on page 1 is the accountant, which all looks at, like, again, sort of low. I assuming the slight increase under wages is one of the small adjustments we have made.
That's a market rate
Yep.
adjustment for the assistant in the office. And I'm also recommending we approve their supplemental funding request, which is a one-time cost to, it's one time, right? To buy a module for Vadar that would allow electronic uploading and saving of records. It's short money for getting rid of paper, I think.
Can we hold on 23 and 23 to 26 until we have that discussion?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready to have, I did have that discussion, but we can. You want,
I
what?
think she's prepared to
Oh, okay.
talk about it. Are you not?
Yes, yep. I did meet with the acting treasurer collector and went through the whole budget with her.
Okay. Did you want to talk about it?
We did make a couple small changes, nothing significant, but the plan, and we're going to get to it a little bit later on, is right now my recommendation is to appoint Kathy Murphy as the interim treasurer collector. My recommendation is to keep her and keep the salary at the same level as it was for the previous treasurer collector. And we have a senior worker who is willing to give us 16 hours a week, recommending an appointment there at, it's $20.63. $19.59. I'm so glad that I can remember things. $19.59 an hour. And that would be until we get through at least, I would say, 3 to 6 months. And we do reconciliation. We're also talking about having some consulting work on the reconciliation side of going back and looking at the past year. And then once we have everything all buttoned up, we would look at what we want to do with the permanent treasurer collector position. So my recommendation is that because we are going to be leaving, if you approve of this, leaving the assistant position open right now and supplementing with what was a $26 an hour position with a $19 an hour position, that leaves some funding in there for consulting. And we would need to do, if anything goes over, which I'm hoping it won't, but we would have to look at a reserve fund transfer for that. It's hard to say right now because we're just starting, so I don't really know for sure. But I don't necessarily want to budget extra money in FY25 for something that could be resolved in FY24. So this is the recommended budget for 20. The one change I did make from what we talked about was we did go down a little bit on expenses. Went and took a look at some of the things we don't need, which we don't need an actuarial study. That saves us some money. So I did recommend increasing the assistant position line item up to $60,000 because my concern is that position is extremely hard to fill. If we were to have to go back out and recruit for that position, I would want to be able to be competitive with the market. And we had a real challenge when we were at 55 trying to recruit there.
That number doesn't look like 60. It still looks like at 56.
Under the TA column, the FY25 under CF.
Okay. Yep.
So the questions that I had really weren't, on that, weren't so much towards this current budget, this yellow budget, but items that you had talked about. You know, you mentioned that Kathy will assume the current treasurer collector's salary, but
But isn't this just currently a budget discussion?
Well-
We have the other part on the agenda. I mean, if it means we can't vote on something that's for fiscal 27 now, is fine. But for me, a plan of
talking
something we're
about
doing
this-
between now and July doesn't affect the budget starting July 1.
I know, but they're kind of related, but you know what, for simplicity, I will hold those questions till we get there and then reserve the right to come back and rebut, so. Just to move this
Yeah.
along, because I know it's getting late at night
Yep.
for you guys.
And so I'm hearing that I would make then the motion that the town administrator recommendation and the accountant salary, so that, what is it, 7 through 11 and 14 through 16, that we vote as a select board to recommend.
And just going forward in future meetings, can we get this up on the screen so that people can?
Oh, I can.
Well, no,
put it
no,
on the
I
screen
mean-
right now, actually.
I just want, I just want,
Now,
I mean,
Is there a
because,
camera that points there?
Yeah,
Because
there's
the
the camera.
camera's above it up there, there's a camera over there, there's a camera
Oh,
up here, but
there's
none of them are
probably
pointed
not.
to
it's
where
not
the
there, all right,
camera's
so
over there,
future meetings, can we
Would it
figure
be
that
easier
out?
for you guys to see it though now if I put it up there?
No, because I think we
we're
have,
good. We all have
the
it
three
in
of us
front of
have it
us.
all up, but it's unfortunate that everybody in the back's going, well, what's 2%?
anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
If I put it up there really big, watch. I'll show
No,
you.
it's okay.
Okay.
Keep going.
No, no, we'll just keep going, but.
They want to go home too. Trying to make people happy.
Yeah.
But for future meetings.
Oh, you can't see anything, no.
And so again, it's 7 to 11, which is the town administrator salary, the admin full-time salary, consulting expenses, and the HR expenses. And then 14, 15, and 16, which is town accountant salary, town accountant full-time wages, and expenses.
So can I ask a dumb question?
Mhm.
Are we, I see we're zeroing out the 3 line items under select board.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Just, I guess why? Or why, are we just combining?
Yep.
Okay.
Just combining them because it's really hard to even like, especially when buy supplies, we're like, select board, town administrator, it's all one office. So it's gotten
Yeah.
challenging to try to split them out.
I also think that it is, you know, and it's a town administrator assistant, not a select board assistant, because I think there was some messiness before on reporting structures and
Right.
stuff like that. So I think it is making
Yes,
it clearer
D
that as
D
a
was
whole.
under us,
Correct.
Right.
D's position.
Right.
Yeah.
But her title is assistant, administrative assistant to the town administrator, so
Right.
that puts her in the TA
Yeah,
budget,
yeah.
and that combines those supplies, that way we don't have to track expenses across two budgets as well, so that saves some time.
And as we were hearing from our fire chief about the budgeting, you have to be an expert if it's not all set up for you. And, you know, you're going to have to be careful when you are hiring new personnel,
Yep.
that they have that ability to do that.
Yeah.
Because it would be easier probably for a lot of people to just have 2 separate line items, full-time, part-time, so that they know they're not going into one or the other when they shouldn't.
Well, they would still have, they're still gonna show it on their backup spreadsheet when they list their personnel out. So I know this is a bit of a radical idea, but I did breach this with the FinCom. For the FY26 budget, I would ideally like to move to a personnel line item and an expense line item. That is how you're traditionally budgeting in most cities and towns. And
I
that
mean,
gives you flexibility.
If you think it'll work, that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. I can just foresee down the future that you may not have the expertise in that budget area. And, you know, oh, we got a number, we get, you know, dollar signs here. We'll just go ahead and get another extra personnel
Well, they would
a
still
full-time
need to
person.
definitely break it out in their budget documentation, and I actually would argue, if we were gonna do that, we'd have to present a more robust budget. That some of the documentation that we provide to the town accountant would actually go in the budget, so you could see all of it too.
Because I had no idea, well, I knew we were combining full-time and part-time, but, you know, then thinking about it as he's explaining it, I'm thinking, wow, you know, is every department head going to have this expertise?
Right, and that's fair, and that's why I was kind of starting with the big two, if you will. I mean, being a strong chief on the fire department, he has the ability, but he's hamstrung by the budget in a way to do it. And I think he's shown a real willingness to be open about the changes that he wants to make in the department and coming before the
Right.
select board and coming before personnel. So, sorry, I'm talking about you like you're not in the room, I thought you left. That's always fun.
Just so we know you're here.
Come up and sit there, guy, that's over here talking about you. No, but I think that there's that, certainly that expertise and that understanding, and I would say that we are certainly growing and professionalizing, and that would be an expectation I would have of any department head to be able to do this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm used to thinking in terms of you don't gear certain things towards the people, you gear it towards the position.
Yeah.
So,
And I think with that backup documentation, we would still cover ourselves there, but it's definitely a conversation we want to continue to have, and I understand what you're saying. 'Cause
Yeah.
I certainly don't want to put
I
anyone
think we've
in
got
over
the
their
people
head.
we need in those positions now to do this, but what about the future?
If they can't do a budget, then you don't hire them.
Well, I was
That's-
gonna say, we
that's-
don't want to go backwards.
That's their job. When someone says, I don't know how to do this.
It's not for like, it hasn't been for like highway or, you know.
But that's also when we were 1/3 of our size. I mean, at this point,
Yes.
if you're running a budget that big, you need to understand budgets.
Yes,
Right.
and I
No one
agree.
should say, I've never done this before, because if they do, then that was a hiring mistake on our part.
Well, yeah, that's what we have to be very careful of, that's my point. Okay,
Oh, do we have a question in the back?
yes.
Well, no, I just wanted, with what Chris was saying, is there are also additional checks and balances that are in place now that weren't before, so it's not just
Well,
that
that's good to hear.
somebody can just go and hire a new person. It would still go through a process, so it's still there, and like Kristen said, the backup would still have to be there to say why you need the money. So I think there's more steps now than there used to be, so.
You have a town administrator. That's part of it too, is my responsibility is to watch the budget, and if there are significant changes, or before anyone approves anything, we do a personnel change form before it goes to personnel that I have to sign
Right.
off on. So it's not like all of a sudden they're gonna hire 5 new people and no one's gonna know about it. 'Cause,
Right, I just want to be able to understand it too.
sure,
And that's why I'm, you know, asking the questions and making the point,
that's fair.
yeah.
There is one thing too on personnel, just with Mike's group, is it would be nice if we had definite, we have a lot of conversations and people asking the difference between the part-times and the per diems. Those are the same, right?
No.
Yes.
You're on call, on call, per diem, and full-time.
Oh, I think you meant on call
Sometimes
and
we
part-time.
get, wait a minute, you have a part-time, it would just be nice for everybody, as like Chris is saying, when you start reading these things.
Yes, and for the most part, I'll say, you are correct in saying that, except one of the things we did is we mixed, at one point in time, call firefighters with the per diem staff, which it shouldn't have happened, but that's.
It had to.
Right. So moving forward, I'm trying to break free of that so that we have our full-time staff. Ideally, I would love to have the full-time staff and then just call firefighters that are filling in for those vacancies. And there aren't per diems, but I'm not sure we'll ever actually get there, but.
Yeah, no, I just meant,
Yeah.
sometimes when we sit down and, like Chris is saying right now, if you look at a piece of paper and you have all these different positions, so just, so we knew what it was.
Well, and my argument would be that, the budget right now is 3 or 4 pages. You would have 20 or 30-page budget that would actually not have the names of the people, but
Right.
the positions on there. So, and the salaries. And I mean, it's, everybody knows already, it's in the town report, it's not a surprise. You could certainly include that, not necessarily in the budget that goes to town meeting, but in the budgets that you put together that go online for everybody to see, and then you can condense the one that actually goes in the warrant.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry. I sidelined this whole conversation. Okay. Now, you've made a motion, correct? And you you seconded it?
No, I was
Did you
waiting till
want
all the
to?
discussion, sure.
Okay, so you have seconded it.
I will second it.
All right, so, no more questions. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
They're all good questions. They really are.
Well,
I
guess-
want you to ask me questions. That means you're going through things and paying attention.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
good.
yeah. Yeah.
So on page 2, the conservation budget is the wages are a 33% increase. I know the dollar amount is small, but
Yes,
Maddie.
so that is a recommendation to add 2 additional hours per week for the conservation agent, so taking her from 8 hours a week to 10 hours per week, which results in that increase. So one of the reasons that the initial one is a 6.6% increase is because in the midst of everything that happened last year, we missed the market rate adjustment last year, so we're putting that in. We did a reserve fund transfer for it this year, so that's 2 years of adjustments that you see in there, plus the COLA. Maddie has taken on increasing responsibility within the commission in terms of grant writing, minute taking, agendas, managing the finances, doing site visits, so
Thank
they're
you.
asking for an extra 2 hours per week.
And then I thought just in fiscal year '23 on line 45, town building repairs, we just added that in as a special line item, and now we're taking it back out?
We did.
We're not repairing our buildings?
No, we are. We added it in as part of the maintenance and repair budget itself. So Fred put it back in. He has a maintenance and
You
repair.
you gotta give us heads up on some of these things. We're thinking, what's going on?
I'm sorry, no, that's why I'm glad you're asking. So Fred actually incorporated that, so he was able to reduce a number of his costs and actually incorporate that $10,000 into his expense line item budget. And it was frustrating and challenging to track it separately when he actually was making those repairs, and it got a little confusing. So he had requested that we include it as part of the expense line item, where he has a
okay.
line item within expenses for the repairs.
That's my question for page 2. Is there other questions on page 2?
Okay,
Then I will do a motion for lines 39 and 40, which is the Conservation Commission wages, part-time, and expenses. Lines 40 through 47, which has to do with the public building expenses, electricity, and fuel oil, and the fire and EMS budget, which we've already talked about.
I'll second
and
it.
what is the blue again?
The blue is Kristen's color coding that no one knows about.
That we don't, it's not tonight.
It's
That's
not
all-
a secret, I'll tell you.
that's
I
all
thought maybe
I'm
it
worried
just
about
was
is
blue
it's
and stay
not
yellow.
tonight.
No,
That's Kristen.
No,
No.
blue means I'm still working on it.
Yep,
That's my message to myself.
yep. I just learned
Alrighty.
that that's not what we're voting on tonight.
Correct.
Okay, so,
Sorry.
got a motion?
Oh, yeah, I already did.
Okay. Then all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And we're gonna hold on 62 to 65.
Yep. I don't think I really had any questions on page 3.
We have a decrease at Neshoba because we added a town. We added Boxborough. So our assessment actually went down.
And
Right.
we're
That's
looking
line
for it
66.
here.
Six-
Line
66, communications.
67.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Really? That should be labeled something else, shouldn't it?
Yeah, could you put Neshoba in parentheses?
It's not just
Ah.
Neshoba. It also includes the public safety admin's salary.
NVRDD.
That's just
And
Neshoba.
expenses for the town's.
I wouldn't know, I wouldn't with that.
Neshoba
Guess
Valley
what? Just use
Regional
communications.
Dispatch District.
I like communication.
With an asterisk,
Um,
see everything.
Communications used to be downstairs, though, with the woman who answered the phone.
Right, and this is the people who answer the phone.
But it's still is.
And everything else.
I am fine, I'll make a motion
Well, I
for
was looking for it and couldn't find it.
66 and 67, which is the communication stuff and the 911 dispatch. Snow and ice, which is 72, 73, and 74. Neshoba Board of Health and Neshoba Nursing, which are 82 and 83.
I'll second.
And, Okay.
So I'm
All
going
in-
fast. My laptop battery has 8 minutes left, so.
8? Yeah, well, good luck. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Page 4, and I'll take 4 and 5 since it's the bottom of 4 and the top of 5. I just want to.
All the yellow.
I know all the yellow, but, so the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission, look at that.
See, you
I
got that
that
one.
I got that one.
NVRDD.
Only because I'm also on the Housing Trust, and that name comes up.
Well, and I used to go to all the NVRDD meetings.
Assabet Regional Housing Commission, which is going up.
Nope.
No, sorry, Regional,
Stays the
sorry,
same.
Housing Consortium is staying the same. The Assabet assessment, which is going down a
Down.
little bit,
Yep, less kids.
less kids.
It's a per
That's-
pupil
Yeah, I know, and
assessment,
it
so-
goes up and down, which also means their debt goes down a little bit. And then their capital improvement fund is now a new line item.
Yep, so they want to put in place planning for the future for future capital improvements. That's also a warrant article.
Mhm.
And they're asking every town to put in their prorated amount. Ours is a whopping $9,078 for this fiscal year.
Do you
No.
know if the other towns are doing this?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's is it 250 or, I think the total was 250
250 or 300, I can't remember.
between all the communities. Right.
And there's what, 5 communities?
Yeah.
5 out of the 7 communities
Yep.
have to approve it. Is that the?
Oh, there are 7 communities,
Right.
though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Line 110, which is the Worcester Regional Retirement, which I always hate that goes up so much. I realize we have absolutely no control over it. I'll talk about, so workers' comp going up by 139%. I know it's been trending down, but why is it doubling?
Because I'm combining police, fire, I'm combining lines 114 and 111 because they're all
Oh, okay,
workers'
yep,
comp.
yep,
So
good.
there's no reason to have them tracked in separate line items.
And thus the increase is not as much.
Correct.
Unemployment compensation, police and fire sick, overall sick pay, Medicare, and property liability insurance, all of which are not going up by tons, but are going up because the universe. So I'll make the motion for those yellow lines from 100 to 117.
Do you have any
Not-
questions? It looked
not-
like you were
not
going to
the blue
start to
ones.
ask a question.
I'll ask the question after you second it.
All right, I'll second it.
Was there anything worth mentioning? Wait a minute, Capital Improvement Fund. That's just a fund. It's
Right.
not attached to any items as of
Correct.
yet.
So this, it's really gonna, it's basically a fund that would be at the discretion of the Assabet School Committee. It would be used for capital items to build, school building repairs at Assabet. So,
Right,
and
okay.
actually, when that gets used, that is at the discretion of the broader school committee, which we have representatives on.
And I wonder how they'll let us know that, they'd like to use some of it for such and such.
That would be a Miss Lynn Ryan question. I can touch base with her.
Okay. All right, that was my question. So we've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thanks for doing that, Scott.
Thank you.
So we don't want to do lines 23 to 26? No?
You know what, just put them through and I'll just ask questions. We'll just move this along. That's fine.
But, I mean, we can do 23 to 26 in our next meeting just as easily as we can now.
We can, but it's next Monday if you.
Okay, I
if
just
you'd
didn't know
prefer.
what exactly we're
There
voting on
are
this.
questions more for this current one. Scott, I have a Dell, do you need a battery charger plug, do you care?
That probably would work, but I'll
You
be
don't care?
fine. I'll be
Okay,
fine.
all right.
I can live without technology.
He's ready to go home.
Oh, wow.
We haven't started the warrant articles.
I know.
You're going to be here a while there, boys and girls. Okay.
All righty. Then we'll move on to the warrant articles.
Okay. I just did a weird thing. It just stopped recording. It made a beep and stopped recording. Is it full?
It shouldn't be.
The board
I didn't touch
has
it.
a lot of
It
hot
says
air.
memory full.
Just saying.
All right, could you just unplug it and hand it to me?
I sure can. I
Thank you
just
very much.
wanted to alert you. No problem. Okay, so warrant, 30 articles, most of which you've already seen, at least in title, and now I have about 2/3 of it filled out in terms of verbiage. There are new ones in green. that came in by the deadline of the 12th. So I'd like to just present those new ones to you, and then we can answer questions you have on any other ones. So the first one is on page 5. It is listed as Article 9, amend the revolving fund bylaw. This is what we talked about for the transfer
What's the article number?
station.
5.
Article number 9.
Yeah, you said page 5. Are there
Page
are there
5,
page
Article 9.
numbers?
Chris?
Yep.
Do you want to share? We'll make it easier. Look. Look, there goes Kristen. She's zipping
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
Sorry. You said it was late, so I was like, let's go, I'm ready.
So this is what we're talking about?
You got it? Yep, all right.
It's 9:02, that's when the punginess
I don't
starts.
think I can see that on this one.
That's because that's her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're freaking Chris out because you're moving your mouse around, so it'll be like
Yeah, 'cause
Kristen,
they're in the
Kristen,
same document
Kristen.
that also.
Oh, because I'm in the, oh, okay,
Which
you
is
know what?
fine.
I got a great idea. I'll just pull it up over here, how's that? Then I won't freak you out.
You were freaking me out, you were freaking her out. That's kind of funny.
Nobody's freaked out.
But that's the one we've already talked
I was just
about
laughing.
earlier, so.
Yep.
Okay, so that's the one we talked about
Yep.
earlier.
You've got.
I'm gonna move again,
Yep.
are you ready?
Yep.
I'm moving.
Oh, I can see it on here.
Now I'm moving to Article 12.
Yep.
Article 12 is not a determined amount yet. That is a discussion to be had between the Select Board and FinCom as we go, but this is the conversation we talked about before about transferring a certain amount of money to the OPEB long-term liability. And I would recommend, and I have to ask council how to do this, that Article 12 be passed over if Article 11 does not pass.
Right,
Yeah.
So-
right. If we decide not to do OPEB, there's no reason to put money into a fund. Right.
Correct.
Good, you can't put money into it.
But I don't know, I think that just needs to be made clear when we, to the voters and,
Yep.
all right.
Yeah.
And then moving on to, I'm moving.
Yep.
Page 11, Article
Page 11,
24.
yes. Which,
see
that
page
actually I
numbers. Where are
learned
they?
today, we learned,
It's in your view, you don't have page numbers.
Yeah, you're a different view up.
So what article number? are we-
24.
24.
24 and
Just because
25.
I know they're green.
that's going away.
24 is
Unfortunately,
going away?
We
What did
cannot
I
do
just
that.
do? Oh, I hit that thing, that's fine. Sorry.
So why can't,
Article 24.
why can't we do 24?
Article 24 was using energy adder funds or stabilization funds for energy improvements at buildings. It
And we
can
can't
only
do
be
that.
used for people.
Yep.
As in consultants, it cannot be used for repairs,
Yes.
which I think is really goofy.
Mhm.
But that is
Yep.
the rule. I talked to Tim Wysocki
Have they talked
yesterday.
about changing that adder at all?
Yeah, they're making it stricter, what you can use it for. DPU is
Oh,
getting,
DPU's changed.
The
I wondered
state.
if they, the group, Energy Committee.
Yeah.
no, it's all
changed that.
under State Department of Public Utility
Because
regulations.
we had to make a decision on that originally.
I think we should stop funding it because they've made
Well,
it
that's
so
exactly.
restrictive as to what we can use it for. So
Yeah.
that's a funding, that's a discussion
That's
rather.
the discussion
to have in
I
the
think
Energy
they should
Committee.
have.
We could close out a fund? That gets my ears open.
It has $89,000 in it and we're continuing to collect on electricity bills. I mean, it's pennies, so it's not like would be a huge
I know,
impact,
but-
but why keep collecting the money when
Yeah.
they've made it so
Couldn't-
restrictive
Couldn't
we
you start
can't
it
use
back up
it?
again if you wanted to another
Good.
time?
Pay for a conservation officer?
No,
That's green, isn't it?
sort of.
But they would pay, but that money would pay for someone to like oversee assessments of buildings and energy and stuff like that.
But our study is gonna tell us what we need and then we just
Correct.
really need the funding to do it. So that's the problem.
Well, but it could pay for a project manager to do it. Like, because running all those projects, doing all the
Well, I'm not
procurement
saying
bids.
deplete the
you know, but-
funds, I'm
but-
saying
Yep.
why keep
Anyway,
adding to it?
24 is going to be passed over or
Yes,
removed.
and we'll continue to have discussions about the adder funds.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm making a note.
It's 25, then the assessor stipend for certification, that's like the treasurer stipend for certification?
Exactly. So that's a request that has been put through. So that is a it's a $500 stipend for a part-time employee, $1,000 stipend for a full-time employee. We're still trying to determine whether 33 hours a week is a part-time or full-time employee. So working on that with Liz, actually. So that's a fun one because we have one way that it's defined in our employee handbook, and then there's another way under state law and federal regulations, and it all just, it's good.
Yeah.
And then Article 26, at the request of the chair, I put this on for discussion. The town does not have a recall bylaw for elected officials. Many towns do have this now, and I have many samples of different ones that towns have, done over the years. They can be very simple. They don't need to be elaborate. So my question to you, since I put it on in time, is to see if that's something the board would want to consider, and I can put the language in if you like the article.
I think it would make a great fall town meeting thing and not for May.
Okay?
Well, wait a minute.
No, I know, I'm just, you have to understand, I only take notes for my own knowledge. It helps me remember things.
Okay.
It's just me. I'm not writing it down like
I
it's
know, I
fine.
thought it was okay.
Nope.
Well, I mean, I don't know enough about it. I don't know why it came to be. I don't know what you have for proposed, so until
Is
I
it-
see that, then,
Shall I tell
yeah.
them?
Sure.
Okay. It came up, I believe maybe it came up because we had been talking with Boylston about the school budget
Mhm.
and the elected people who are on the school committee.
I think all the more reason to not do it in a hurry.
Yeah.
Is that I don't want to do it because we think there's a person
Yeah.
that might or might not be.
Yep.
I'd rather have it sort of when there's not someone, when there's not an election sort of
Okay.
current.
But it did come up because
Yeah.
Boylston has it
Yeah.
and we don't.
Right, and us being part of a regional school
Yep.
district and, they can handle things differently than we can, it might make sense to be aligned.
Yeah, no, I would just like to see,
It-
and thank you for the why, but I would like to see more
Yeah.
other reasons why, because I don't want it to be witch hunt,
Oh,
so
I-
elected officials.
Right, there is language, I think that
Right.
Boylston said theirs is very strict.
Yeah.
And you could go with language such as theirs, which I have never seen,
just-
but,
Always when we get to the end of February, the amount of work that needs to be done to get this warrant in the mail on time to people, if I can do anything to make that easier to happen, I'm generally going to be in favor of doing it. And this looks like something that I just, it's not.
Can slide till December.
Well, it can slide December, because again, we've not had discussions here, we've not seen it, even
Right.
if you have wording that you
Yep.
like from another town, there's not a guarantee that we like that wording.
Right.
that's
I
fine,
would just,
that's fine.
I think this is great to definitely put on the list of things to do for a
To talk
December
about?
town meeting, so we can
Okay.
do it in a planful manner, make sure it's out there.
Right,
So I don't want it dropped, but
Just
not
not
for
right
now.
now.
okay, sounds good.
So
Yep.
is that consensus then, that I'll
Yes,
move it
it
to
is.
the fall
Yep.
I believe
23,
it is.
fall 23, sorry, fall 24 list?
Yeah.
I'm back in last year again. All right, and then you have your planning board articles now with the full language in here. And I did receive what is hopefully the correct language on the town election motion for this year. If we were to do an override, I learned today that we would make that part of the school budget article. So that doesn't have to have its own article. So that just leaves, and that would be the same with the debt exclusion if we ended up having to do something for capital. I just put them in as a placeholder. The initial budget request I have seen requests over $1.5 million in capital from just Berlin. For Berlin Boylston Regional. So,
And we have done debt without doing debt exclusion, because that still forces the payment of that debt to keep us within the 2.5% levy limit. And since we have a lot of levy capacity, I've always been a fan of trying to close some of that gap, so we can't just randomly do
True.
large budget increases without having to do overrides.
borrow within the levy, you
Yep.
can certainly do that.
The Assabet debt is within the levy.
But
It still raises taxes.
still
but
goes
it's
to the
not-
pool.
But it eats up your excess
And
levy.
excess levy, so we can't continue to raise, they'll stay, it keeps us within a cap level.
right, but this would still mean it'd have to go to the polls.
No, not if you do it within the levy.
Not if we do it with a levy.
So that's the question, right?
And that was the reason for doing an override.
On the override, definitely. On a debt exclusion, I think people are less concerned only because it's not a permanent adjustment, but yes, I know it's still money. So
Yeah.
the idea that we talked about with an override was getting it in the hands of the most number of greatest number of voters, right? So if you have an override and a debt exclusion, then you have to do both town meeting and a ballot question. If you're just tapping into levy capacity, it only has to go to town meeting.
Right,
So-
for the debt, I think it could done with the levy, with a massive budget. If they're end up doing a massive budget, I'd like that to be an override. But you say we can just do that on the floor? No, we can't do it on the
No.
floor because it has to already be on the ballot at that point.
Correct. So this is where the timing is becoming an issue, and we did some research and spoke to Eloise. We'd have to get that override on the ballot at least 35 days before the election, which is a week after town meeting. So
You can always have,
yeah.
you can always have something on the ballot,
Yeah, it's easier to have something on the ballot that is
but
not
it
used.
doesn't have to be on that particular date when we go to the polls. You know what I'm saying?
You're talking about having a
You can
special
push it-
election?
Yeah, you
Or
push it
wait till
out.
November election, where the school board will already be on the ballot.
For an override, we can't because we have to have everything in place by July 1, or we have to have a regional
1/12 budget.
or a 1/12 budget.
I think the reason that we were talking about doing an override is so that we would have more people being able to vote, because not everybody goes to town meeting.
Less than 10%. Question for you, so I know, the line's written school debt exclusion, and, people are hearing debt exclusion, levy capacity, borrow within the levy, override, underride. I don't know, is there an appropriate space to put in a definition? Because if you ask probably 10 people outside these walls, they're gonna be like,
don't know
I
what
have
you're talking
zero
about."
idea what you're talking about.
Fair enough. And I'm certainly happy to put that in. It would go in, and we would have a lot of discussion around it if this is something we
Okay.
would be recommending.
This is where the annual town report had the definitions of things,
Well, and we can put it in the mailer, we can put the
Yeah.
relevant definitions for.
I thought
for
the mailer, I thought Barry
I thought we
always
did.
put the definitions in the mailer.
I thought he did.
I thought he did in the mailer too, yeah.
Town
It's,
report.
it's a shorter list because it's only definitions related to the budget, but yeah.
Okay.
I think
well, it
it's-
was for town meeting purposes, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah.
But you just want to make sure that if people are
Yeah.
voting for something, that they absolutely understand what they're voting for
Yeah.
and the impact on them, instead of, hey, I'll do an override
so-
because that sounds really good, and no, I don't want to do an underride, and, yeah.
I mean,
So-
so the reason for the override was to get more people to be able to vote on something.
Right.
The school budget, because they can stack the town meeting. I don't know that they can stack the polls, they can, but we could too.
I mean, statistically, I will tell you the chances are that it overrides win at town meeting and lose at the ballots. If you
Exactly.
look at traditionally over and over, say with debt exclusions.
Mm-hmm.
And so probably at an upcoming agenda, we should have a conversation about the process for putting an override on the budget.
Yeah.
Because as you point out, an override is not something we can do we can, if it's not brought up until town meeting, then it will not make the July 1st deadline. And so we'll have to do something about it prior to that date.
And that's why, because a deadline for the warrant was February 12th, that's why I put those
Yep.
placeholders, if you
Yep.
will, on there. I don't like doing it.
Right.
I almost, part of me wants to say, no, that the school has missed the deadline, because they have.
Yep.
But the problem is, that only hurts the voters and we know that there's a possibility of potentially needing to have that. So I'm trying to weigh deadlines versus what we can do to get the information out
Well,
there.
if they have missed the deadline to put in for an override, then it's not
But
really
the problem
our
is that they
fault.
can just tap into excess levy.
Right, so.
We already did that. We're not doing that again.
well,
So that's why we
le-
need to leave this option on the table.
I think so.
Right, there are two steps to this.
Mhm.
One is what happens at town meeting, but the
Correct.
other is to physically put it on the ballot. We will have to vote on something before town meeting as a select board to put it on the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we don't do that prior to town meeting, it cannot happen to be on the ballot until after July 1, which causes more problems.
That is correct. So just to make it a little simpler, I think, for the viewer, the reason it's a two-step process is also because you're voting on two different things. So on the override on the warrant, you're voting on the dollar amount. What you're actually voting on in the ballot is to exceed the limits of Proposition 2.5. So Proposition 2.5 means you can only raise taxes by 2.5%. So you're actually voting on that to go higher percentage-wise, and then the actual amount is what you're voting on in the warrant, in the budget, and voting on the budget itself.
And then you're saying that when we pass the school budget, we could do a motion on the floor that says this is contingent upon passing the override at the town meeting.
Not on the floor. It needs to be in the warrant.
Okay.
So that's why I have a
So,
placeholder for it in the
We should
warrant.
continue to, I feel we should continue to have a placeholder on the warrant for it, because it is easier to pass over than it is, or frankly, even remove it between now and the time of printing, than it is to add it in later on.
Correct. And here's the technical problem, right? Without a number,
Mhm.
I can't say, here's the school budget, here's the FinCom budget, there's $500,000, just throwing a number out there, there's
Yep.
$500,000 difference, and that $500,000 shall be raised through an override. I can't even say that right now because I don't have the numbers. But if I don't leave that option on there on the
Right.
warrant, then I can't do anything later because
Right.
you cannot, my understanding, and I don't even think the moderator would allow this, that you could raise an override from the floor.
Right. So I believe that we're keeping a placeholder for an override on that warrant article now.
Correct.
And in the next couple of weeks, as we go through this every week, we will continue to add more to it or pull it at some point.
Exactly, but because we had a deadline, I wanted to make
Yeah.
sure that it got on there,
Mm-hmm.
just in case.
And we will have the school budget as early as tomorrow when the school is presented to the school board. And they're doing a presentation to FinCom on the 6th of March. And so by whatever our meeting is after the 6th, we should have a good sense of knowing whether or not we're going to pull it or not.
Yeah, and I would give the caveat,
11.
though, that it's a preliminary budget, again,
The
that they're
11th is the
giving
next
tomorrow
meeting
to the
after
school
FinCom.
committee, and I don't think that's gonna be the final number.
Right.
So that's all of
Yep.
the changes that I've made. I don't know if you have questions on any of the other warrant articles.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
I mean, and just on chief stuff that we already talked about.
Yeah, and I'm gonna continue working on the language, once I finish what I can do, I'm gonna have town council take a look at it, but these are the articles I have received.
And 30 is a lower number for us. We've been in the 40s.
So I
the last
told
couple
her,
of
she
years.
was all worried.
I was like, that's such a huge number.
No,
Well,
we-
at first I was up to 39, and then there was some that were able to come off, so I was
We've
really
done like
thankful about that.
45,
We've broken,
38.
we've had 2 nights where we've broken them like at 20,
Yeah, yeah,
20
yeah.
and 20.
Yep.
Well, and again, with the citizens
No
petition at the
two-night town
end.
meetings,
Yeah.
no.
We.
Not unless you're
many,
building a
many
school
times.
or
Oh,
a
come on.
public
When
safety.
When was the last time we did a
complex or-
one-night town meeting? We've done 3-night town meetings.
Yeah.
We did last May, was a
Was
one-night
last
town
May a
meeting?
2-night one?
No,
It was only one.
yes.
Since she's been here, there's only been one night.
That's because there wasn't anything.
It was also only been one meeting.
I know.
It was only one night.
It's one night, because we did the second night in December.
I don't do two-night town meetings unless you have a major capital project. That's, I try to make that my
Concord
rule.
does 4-night town
Yeah,
meetings regularly.
welcome
They
to.
have
Well, you know, it's so
100
funny because
cost
if
of
you go over to Boylston,
Yeah.
they get everything done in 15 minutes and they're done, they're out of there. We
Speaking of
take
which-
forever.
Have you spoken with the town moderator in regard to parents' concerns about that goes on forever and no one stops it until the notes are passed for somebody to stand up and say, I want to pass over?
But that's the way it's
It's-
supposed
I
to
know.
be.
Yep.
Entirely the purview of the moderator, which is the challenge. I have certainly wanted to speak to him in person when I see him, just to put it on his radar. I have not had the
I
opportunity
haven't
to
been
see him
able
in
to get a
person.
handle on
It
these
is.
meetings.
Right.
That's my fault. Blame me.
People have the right to speak at town meeting, and I point out to people when I give advice that, like, the second time you stand up or the third time you stand up at town meeting, you're doing more harm to your cause than good, because people are already, like,
Aggravated that you're
they're
coming
they're
back
onto you,
round.
and that you get aggravated, and so you gotta figure out the one thing you're willing to say.
Julie,
Chris, yeah, I just wanted to say, one of the things, this is my first experience moving here with town meeting, but I thought one of the points is when you go in, you're supposed to go in and hear out your neighbors.
Mhm.
Yeah, but you don't have to hear them out 3 or 4 or 5 times. The
They're not
moderator
the
can
same
put a
person.
limit
You're not
on.
the same
Yeah.
person, but some things I think, I have found it very valuable
yeah,
in person
Well, I
to
think
hear
it's-
what they say.
you really shouldn't call on any, I mean, the same person shouldn't go up again till everybody else has had a chance to speak, but that's not how he handles it.
And this only came as a result when I attended the Link meeting, that parents had concerns that a reason that a lot of them don't go is that there's the line down both sides where Chris stands up and says, yes, and then Scott stands up and says, me too, and 45 people later say, me too, so there's not really a value add to it, so the concern has been passed.
Heard and noted.
Understood.
Okay. All right, are we moving
What else are we
on?
talking about? Yes.
Food pantry.
Food pantry.
Yes, so based on the concerns, or the concerns, the discussion that we had, I think I did that correctly. The discussion that we had previously on the food pantry lease, I amended the lease. There were 2 additional provisions that didn't apply to them, one of which was the repair of the building, because they don't make any repairs to the building. They also don't maintain or clean or sweep the building. It's part of our responsibility. So those items were removed. The food pantry did agree to everything, and I believe, is that in here? They dropped off the signed agreements today. So if you're comfortable moving forward, we have a agreement with the food pantry, and this is going to be a 5-year lease for $1.
You know, we've
$1
got
not
a
really.
lot of those $1 leases.
Mhm.
We talk about them anyway. So is there some kind of a stipulation as to when that $1?
You don't actually pay the
You-
dollar.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it's
Well, I mean,
it's
some do.
$1,
Some
not
do.
$1.
You don't have to, though.
No, I know.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't expect them to.
That's what-
to have
that
to
was my
pay it.
point, I
Yeah,
guess.
nope, it's okay. When it's $1, there's an understanding that it's been paid when you sign the agreement.
Yeah.
So you're good.
All
And
right.
given the good that they do, I'll
Right.
throw in the $5 if
Oh, I
anyone's
know.
looking for
I was
it.
gonna
I
say-
know.
I was gonna look for my wallet here.
Mhm.
I move that we approve the food pantry lease.
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Just chair signature.
Oh, okay. I'll wait a second and do that.
Yep.
So then we've got the presidential primary warrant, 2024.
This is a request from the town clerk to ask the select board sign the warrant that is before you.
I think it's silly, like what
Did you
options
want
do
to,
we have?
did you want to
But-
edit it?
I was gonna say, it's a presidential election. You don't really have a whole lot of options.
We
unless
do
you'd
we
like
do
to
the same for
make
the state
nightly
elections
news.
too. I move we sign the warrant for the presidential primary.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
So it says warrant must be posted by February 27th. Oh, so tomorrow, look at that. Ha, ha, ha.
Yes, there's like 8 copies to sign too.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
Oh, I signed the top line, I'll sign the bottom line here.
And I already voted. Love the mail-in ballot.
Did you really?
How can you vote? We've not approved the warrant. What if we denied it?
Well, then you'd have to go battle it out with Eloise to pull my ballot out of the mailed-in box. I would pay to, that would be worth $5, just saying.
I got a hotline to the candidates. You can call them.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, that'd be a fundraiser, you can fund the town with that.
Berlin will never have another budget issue again.
I don't know what's next on the agenda. I don't have a computer anymore.
Hey, you were offered a power cord, just
I know.
saying.
Appoint interim treasurer collector
I know.
Kathy Murphy.
Yes, so I am making a recommendation that Kathy Murphy is currently the assistant treasurer collector in the office. I have enclosed her resume in your file. She has just about 9 years of experience with treasurer collector and payroll operations between several different communities. And I have to say, she has been doing an exceptional job of stepping up in what has been a challenging situation. And I'm very impressed with the work that she's done so far. So I am asking the board if they would appoint her as interim. And as I mentioned earlier, we would go through a process for a permanent collector, which she would be eligible to apply for. That could be internal or external. And I'm not sure, where we want to go, but for right now, we do actually have to have an interim now that that position is vacant. And my honest thinking is, if this is a position that she's interested in taking down the line, if we can grow our own. We've faced some serious challenges in finding treasurer collectors out in the broader community. There are very few of them, but we would obviously go through a full recruitment process for the permanent position. I mean, this is the reason we brought in an assistant treasurer collector, is to grow the person, and if something like this
And I
happens.
think as a town, we have several times where we have grown people from their positions into be department heads. I think 2 of our 3 other department heads started in the town earlier, and so I am fine with this. I would take a motion to appoint her as interim.
Okay, do I hear a second? Do Do I hear a second?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And we've got the appointment of senior work-off worker as a temporary per diem employee. Karen Velasquez.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So this is one where I have to ask for a bit of forgiveness in a sense on this. We had a senior worker who was previously working in the treasurer collector's office, Karen Velasquez, and needed to have some immediate coverage in the office on the day-to-day, because obviously to assume some of these new responsibilities, the treasurer collector needed regular office coverage, and this would be for answering the phone, taking payments from folks at the windows, checking the mail, and doing some basic data entry. And we were fortunate in that there had been somebody previously working during tax season in that office, and that is Karen Velasquez. I did speak with Peggy Sardell, who runs the senior work-off program, and this particular worker, as we are already in February, has used a lot of her hours, and the very few she has left, she would like to go to the Historical Commission, because she works about 3 to 4 hours a week for the Historical Commission. I knew that she didn't have very many hours left, and we were likely going to have to transition her into like a per diem temporary position as a clerk anyways. But I think that being sensitive to the Historical Commission, my recommendation would be that we do that now.
So I have some questions about this whole process. And I'm not even going to do PEG math. I'm leaving it to Kristen exact math. So there you go.
Okay.
All right, so I think you'd stated earlier that Kathy will assume the current treasurer collector
Interim.
salary.
Yeah,
Interim.
oh, yes, yeah.
But that's salary,
Yes.
correct? All right. So her salary, quote unquote, is not being touched, but it is. So my question for you is, out of the money that we would have been paying her to date, what is the cost for the consultant that you're bringing in, and the cost of the we won't call her a tax write-off person because she's not a write-off person. Where are we in terms of that? So she gets paid $100, he's coming in at 75, she's coming in at 1925? Did I get that right? 95,
59.
somewhere around there?
59.
Where is, are we in line with that? Are we going over what the budget amount currently is? Are we under? I mean, I'm
I
just
think we're going to
looking.
be saving some money.
We're saving money on the assistant treasurer collector side, because that position was paid almost $27 an hour at 40 hours a week. So right now you're paying $19.59 an hour for 16 hours a week.
But you're
So-
also paying the consultant $75 an hour. So
That's where
is
that
coming
additional
from?
money would go out of, from that, essentially from that line item. We'd have to do a line item transfer.
But the net at the end is still likely near where we budgeted.
I believe it's near where we would budget. It might go a little bit over. I can't say for sure. It really depends. The consultant is just starting to take a look at the items. I can tell you that I contacted about 7 different consulting firms. Their average prices are about $150 an hour typically, so this is a pretty significant savings on that side. But it's hard to say without them getting into it exactly how many hours they're going to need to do it.
So what is going to be done in terms of checks and balances and/or reviews to ensure issues that occurred in the past do not occur again?
What happened?
I can't really have that conversation. That's a personnel matter.
Okay?
Right.
What checks and balances are being done to ensure that the responsibilities of the job are accurately being done? How's that? In other-
Just what we were doing before. And making sure that we are continuing to have the types of conversations that we were having that led us to address and deal with the issues that we discovered.
And I think it may have been a longer time for it to have been discovered if they didn't have those checks and balances there.
If we hadn't reorganized the office, I don't know that this would have been,
I mean, and it's not just that position as well, so I am not, like, in general. even though you say it's a, 90-day, help me, I'm looking for the word,
90-day,
time period.
No.
Like you come in and I'm
you
gonna
get
look.
90 days.
Probationary period.
Thank you.
Period,
So you
yes.
have a 90-day probation period, and there should be checks and balances. I guess my concern is, are they always done? Are they always looked at? And across any department, it could be insert anybody here, that they come in, that stuff is being done, so we hopefully try to avoid anything that could potentially go wrong.
Absolutely. And, one example I can give you is we terminated an employee during their probationary period recently in the highway department because I checked in weekly with the department head, as I do when we have new employees. And there are, identified issues. We did some coaching and repeated training, and it wasn't working. And so unfortunately, we did need to, terminate that prior to the end of the period. But we just have to be really careful what we say. It's hard. I'd like to say more, but.
No, understood. And I guess I was just getting to is that I want the folks who are watching this, and the rumor mill is whizzing. I'm even getting questions from people that don't live in town, but I just want people to feel comfortable that there are processes and procedures in place that are being followed, which could potentially lead to someone not being here, or confirm that someone should be here. That's all I was getting to, is that it's not gonna be,
See,
what?
I think because policy and procedures were followed, because there's supervision, we found things and took action.
Okay.
That sometimes letting an employee go, or sometimes even putting an employee on administrative leave while you spend some time really planfully researching things, is the sign of a system working.
Right.
If you think back to my time on FinCom, where luckily it wasn't a town employee, but a contractor's employee, where, a six-figure amount of money was stolen and washed away somewhere?
Yeah.
That what happened over years. That wasn't just a short-term sort of thing. And so, I think because we have some systems in place, because we have a town administrator, some of these things are found faster and solved faster.
I know.
And I think more professionally and better, and with less sort of chat. I can't stop you from saying things now, but less things based on fact that was coming out of the office than was happening before.
Well, that's just it. I mean, depending upon the version of, information that you choose to listen to.
Mhm.
Again,
Well, there
it's
shouldn't
just-
be any information out there, though. That's also concerning to me.
No,
because
but so.
This is an employee resignation, so I think we have to be really clear about that.
Oh, absolutely, it was an employee resignation, but all I'm saying is that the swirl that goes on of other people of, hey, did you hear? Oh, no, you didn't hear that. This is what I heard. I just want to confirm and let people know that there are policies and procedures that are being looked at and followed, and it's for everyone across the board who is an employee of this town.
Absolutely, and one of the reasons, if you look at the legal budget, and one of the reasons we have to up it, and we've had this discussion as well, is because of the numerous amount of personnel issues that I've had to address in the past year and a half since I came on board.
Okay, that's all. It was just a comment, just to make sure that people aren't like, oh, what's going on in the
Well,
hallway?
you have to reassure them too.
Oh, and I do, but it doesn't matter. It's the version of the truth that they choose to listen to, whatever version of the truth they've made up. And by the time it hits you, it's already splintered 85 different times. So it's kind of hard.
I wish I
Yeah.
had enough time to
I know,
come up with stories.
I know. But again, if we're comfortable in just saying, I just want to confirm with you that, yes, there are policies and procedures that are being done, and things that should be done are okay, so we're good. Okay. All right, that's all I got.
Okay.
All set?
We did that.
We're waiting
So
for a
board-
second.
Oh, second, sorry. Look at you on the ball, Miss 935. Mm-hmm.
All
That's
right.
good.
Thank you for saying that.
Thank you.
Get sidetracked and you forget. All right, we've got a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, board questions on the agenda, or something that you want on the agenda? We talked about talk about overrides at some point on the agenda. Liaison updates.
I just have a follow-up question. If you don't know the answer, that's great. But we got the rail trail grant for 50, or whatever the dollar amount was.
100.
We were worried about those getting cut in half. Do we know whether it was formally cut in half, or did
It's
we really?
not been cut in half.
It has not been cut in half?
No, unless there's a second round of cuts that come
Right.
through. In the first round, no.
Okay. So potentially something, because we allocated half of that money, that potentially there's a conversation at some point, not necessarily in the next
True.
week or two, but.
But to keep on the
But
radar.
To keep on the radar and make sure that we get that allocated before there are potentially a second round of cuts that aren't being talked about yet, but if there's something for that. I would like, at some point, the facility study, what we've seen of it already, had a list of immediate repairs that are eligible in some buildings, and I would love at some point to see whether or not there is some ARPA funds available for some of those that are more immediate than other immediate projects for repairs on buildings that might be worth doing.
Or putting an article on the warrant.
That's
Uh,
closed.
And then,
Well, it's our.
we
it's our
voted on
warrant,
insurance
actually.
eligibility changes that removed some elected officials. Have the, like, people who have been impacted, or we should probably send something to the elected bodies that might have generally been eligible to say, look, if you don't have it, you're not eligible anymore. If you do have it, it stays with you until you leave that position, but if you change positions within town, you don't get to keep it anymore, so people are not surprised, like there's no one potentially running for office in May thinking they're running to get health insurance on the town. And
Yeah,
so-
Kathy and I talked about that. She'd started to put something together because
Right.
she's going to be getting information out about open enrollment. I was
Yep.
going to do it through that process, but in lieu of that, I could get something out just
I
through
think,
email or.
yeah, just to the
Yep.
people who would have normally qualified who don't anymore, just to
Sure.
let
Well,
them know.
it
I
would
think
only
that's
be
okay.
for those who, new people that would be coming.
No, but
No,
in theory,
just-
like, up until that vote, I could have, in open enrollment, joined health insurance, and now I
Correct.
can't. You know, and so I think that just in case there's someone who was counting on it.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
To know about
Yeah,
that.
gotcha.
If there was someone in town thinking of running so they could get health insurance, that would not be a reason to run anymore. Or someone who has it now is thinking of going to a different position within
Right.
the elected body, just so that no one after a May election
Mhm.
suddenly discovers what they were planning on doesn't exist.
Right, okay.
Makes sense.
Those were just the things I had.
Okay. Did you have anything, Peg?
Just briefly on Concom, when they met on the 7th, there were 2 engineers that Fred brought in regarding the notice of intent on the South Street Bridge. So Concom tentatively approved that they were looking for some additional information on floats in the water and silt fencing to, in addition to some jute wattles, but they didn't see any issues with that. So that project should be whizzing along. Let's see, Highland Ridge, there's still some, about 250 yards of soil and stuff that need to be removed. We're causing channeling, so we'll find out what's going on that. And Earth Day, they seem to have settled on April 27th, but I don't know what they're gonna do with that. So I know that they're working with Link to do some kid cleanup around the school and where kids can go safely, and you don't want to use the big plastic bags because the big plastic bags are plastic and it kind of defeats the purpose. But if you use paper bags, paper gets wet, you really can't pick them up, and you don't want to use buckets because buckets get heavy. Earth Day is April 27th.
It will be.
That's what
I'm
they
writing
voted
this
on.
down.
Yeah. There you go.
Right, well, I did watch the last 15 minutes, I don't know if it was the last meeting or not, but I just wanted to make sure that you knew that we weren't closing that warrant.
Oh, no.
For the fall town meeting.
No, that was fine. So I don't know if the recording went off, but that was corrected. It's good.
Okay, because
Mhm.
in the recording, it's not correct.
Then it must have got cut off. But no, I called Kristen out of the FinCon meeting and confirmed with her and strolled back into the room, so you're good. It was a recording issue. That was an awesome
They
meeting.
did adjourn.
Well,
So you just have to be careful what you tell them.
no, and I told them that I would confirm. So it was, unfortunately, they closed the meeting, I think, a lot quicker than they had wanted to, so.
Okay. All right. If we're all set,
Hmm?
we'll take a I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded. I shouldn't second, maybe I should make you guys sit here till
Oh,
10 o'clock.
oh,
I know, you can
I-
second.
I can second it.
That's true, you can second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.